attacks will end, and at the same time I hope that the IAEA will be able to have access to the plant and to exercise its mandate competencies.
China on Thursday renewed its threat to attack Taiwan following almost a week of war games near the island.
Of course, the statement of China goes against the facts and reality in the two straits, and it also goes against the international law. China was merely using U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan as an excuse to create a new normality to intimidate Taiwan's people.
Satellite images appear to show extensive damage and several destroyed Russian warplanes at a Crimea air base following explosions earlier this week.
These are the first independent images to confirm the extent of the damage caused by these explosions on Tuesday. They've been released by the US-based company Planet Labs, and they seem to contradict Russia's account of what happened. Moscow has denied that any aircraft, there was damage to any aircraft there after those explosions, and Moscow also denies that these explosions were caused by any attack.
An Iranian man has been charged by the U.S. with plotting to kill former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton.
We face a rising threat from authoritarian regimes who seek to reach beyond their own borders to commit acts of repression, including inside the United States. This is an especially appalling example of the government of Iran perpetrating egregious acts of transnational violence in violation of U.S. laws and our national sovereignty.
This is the latest news headlines. President Joe Biden on Wednesday enacted legislation that will expand the Department of Veterans Affairs, providing health care support for millions of veterans, as well as their families and caretakers who were exposed to toxic burn pits. Known as the PACT Act, the package grants more time to enroll in VA-provided care for veterans exposed to toxins while serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, according to the White House. A Fulton County judge has ordered Rudy Giuliani, former President Donald Trump's personal attorney, to travel to Atlanta next week to deliver in-person testimony about possible criminal interference in Georgia's 2020 election after Giuliani delayed testimony to recover from a medical procedure. Barring any further directives from Giuliani's doctor, Judge Robert McBurney considered all transportation options before he ordered Giuliani to appear in person next week. On a train, on a bus, or Uber, or whatever it would be, the judge said, that's plenty of time to make the trip. A closely watched government economic gauge showed that consumer prices in the United States were virtually unchanged from June to July, an indication that hot-running inflation has begun to cool. Most analysts expected the gauge to show that prices increased slightly by 0.2% for the month, which would have been viewed as a positive sign. Instead, the gauge showed no change at all, which is seen as even more hopeful. Gaming companies are facing a slowdown in demand for video games from pandemic highs, raising doubts about their ability to weather out an economic downturn. Rising prices and lack of hit titles have added to problems for video game publishers Activision Blizzard Incorporated and Electronic Arts that are also battling supply chain delays and a shift in consumer choices due to easing lockdowns. And that's the latest news headlines. I'm Alan Edwards.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 Hour Pain Relief. I'm Barry Yarconi, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain. But I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 Hour Pain Relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 Hour Pain Relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 Hour Pain Relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
So you want to go green? How about going green with your greenbacks? Try aspiration.com. Shares your values on the environment and climate change. Ever wonder what the big banks do with your deposits? Well, it goes to fossil fuel companies for sure. Not at aspiration.com. Your deposits will never fund fossil fuel projects like pipelines, oil rigs, and coal mines. With aspiration.com, you get 55,000 free in-network ATMs, 3 to 5% cash back on conscientious coalition purchases, personal impact score to help you shop to match your values, and an option to plant a tree with every roundup. Deposits in your Aspiration Spend and Save account are FDIC insured up to $2.46 million per deposit by being swept to FDIC member institutions. To find out more, you can go to aspiration.com/revolution.
This is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America, together, investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
Thank you, Freddie, and good afternoon, Americans, and welcome to the Jeff Santos Show. It is great to be with you on this Friday edition of the program. We are live here in the South Coast on this Friday afternoon. It is great to be with you on the 12th of the great month of August, summertime. A little bit cooler, thank God, than it was last week. So we're rocking and rolling into the 80s today. No 90s, thankfully, never again, hopefully, in the next, at least the next few weeks, maybe next year, but we'll deal with it then. We have a great program for you today. We're going to be talking with our good friend John Shelton, who came to us from our good friend Harvey Kaye. They're colleagues at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Unlike Harvey, he is actually a part of a major labor union and a member. He's vice president of the AFT Wisconsin, and he's also the associate professor of history and democracy at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. We'll talk to John Shelton today at 3:34. Lots going on in, of course, the state of Wisconsin. You have a governor's race with Evers and how that plays into the right-wing takeover of the House and Senate, all the gerrymandering going on. Matter of fact, Mr. Shelton's wife, Christina Shelton, is in a gerrymandered district that, you never know how it's going to change, year to year. So that's, kind of a headache, to say the least, for Democrats and obviously the Shelton family. And of course, we'll also talk about the Senate race, Mandela Barnes. Everybody's coming around to Mr. Barnes, endorsed early by Ms. Shelton. And by John Shelton as well. So we'll get into all of this. It's just a lot of chaos, what's going on in that state. And of course, it's a great pivotal swing state with a lot of great progressive history, the Follets and so on and so forth. So we'll get into that with John Shelton. Then Harvey Kaye joins us in his usual time slot. It's a lot about Wisconsin today, because not only do we have John Shelton there in Green Bay and Harvey Kaye, but John Nichols, the maven of Madison, Wisconsin, the native, will join Harvey Kaye for the full hour. Harvey will be on video. John, unfortunately, because he's traveling today, he's with the Wallace family. You may remember that name because just several months ago, we had on the descendants of FDR's cabinet, and Henry Wallace, who John Nichols has written about, Fight for the Soul of the Democratic Party. His grandson, Scott Wallace, is traveling with Mr. Nichols and their families. So he'll be joining us from undisclosed location, probably in Dyersville, where the game was last night between the Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds, or maybe not. I would be there if I was in Iowa, but who knows? I'm not sure if John is there or in Des Moines or wherever the case may be. But we'll be talking with Nichols and Harvey Kaye for the entire hour, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Mark Taylor Canfield will join us a little half hour earlier. And then we're going to, of course, our great Renaissance man is MTC, a musician, and we get lots to talk about on that front. Then at 5:30, kind of a special. We did a little bit of this in the past, but it runs 12 minutes. It's our great dynamic duo for the first time in 2012, for the first time in, at that point, 30 years, that Jesse Jackson and Mike Dukakis would share a microphone. Of course, they both teed off, along with the likes of Gary Hart and Al Gore and Dick Gephardt and others in the 1988 Democratic primary. And, of course, Dukakis would win and then lose to George H.W. Bush in that very, very dismal year, in a frustrating campaign that even Governor Dukakis will talk to you about. But that also was the beginning of the kind of rainbow coalition that really gained steam in that campaign. Of course, a lot of that was taken into Bernie Sanders campaigns in 16 and 20. And, of course, even Obama took a lot of it too. So it's really fascinating. You get to hear that for about 12 or 13 minutes. And then we'll wrap up the show, folks. Of course, you can always check out Facebook Live. Go into the search bar for Jeff Santos Show, and you can watch it on a loop. It's always there. Facebook Live is the best way. Now, we are making changes to the Revolution Radio Network, as I said, over the last couple of days. There's going to be more changes added to it where you can watch and listen at Revolution Radio Network. Again, we'll probably make the name change to Jeff Santos Show .net, jeffsantoshow.net. And that will be taking place over the next couple of weeks as well. So lots of under construction, but we're trying to do the best we can to put on the finishing touches on all this over the coming weeks as we head toward Labor Day. That's the goal. And hopefully we'll be adding, more outlets as well come September, October. Phone number is the same, 833-545-833-545-JEFF with a J, or 833-545-5333. There you go. You can also email me, Jeff, at revolutionboston.com. Check us out and post on Facebook and Twitter at Jeff Santos Show. You can also watch us on Twitch. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later in the broadcast as well. I want to take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about our good friend Joe Sandberg, who is a sponsor of the show and is also trying very hard for the $18 minimum wage. I just learned recently that over the last couple of weeks, the corporate entities, and this is why I think it's so important what Wendell Potter was saying yesterday. You cannot take your foot off the pedal, off the gas, when it's going against corporate America, Wall Street, pharmaceutical industry, restaurant power, whatever it might be. State, local, federal. Well, Joe Sandberg, as you well know, is trying desperately to get an $18 minimum wage to the people of California. And as you all know, the cost of housing, and we're actually trying to get somebody from Los Angeles on that issue of housing on the program. We were in touch with them today, and hopefully we'll be able to get them on next week. But in San Francisco, too, it's extremely expensive in both of those major cities. Both great cities in many ways. Well, Sandberg is being denied because of some petition deadline that they missed, apparently, during the pandemic and all that. It's outrageous, but this is the power that the lobbyists have inside Democratic assemblies, Democratic Secretary of State, and so forth. But we've seen this before in Medicare for All. So we are fighting for Joe Sandberg as he is fighting for this show and fighting for us as a whole. We are deeply disappointed that this thing may not happen. They're saying it could happen in 2024. But as Joe Sandberg says, those people who are trying to make a living in California, particularly in those big cities, you're telling them to hold on for 2 years. Won't be implemented until 2025, so almost 3 years. He's a guy who understands it. And we wish Joe the best. They were going to try to appeal it to the governor and the state legislature. We'll see what happens. We'll get final word. And hopefully one of these days we'll get Joe Sandberg back on the program. He's a true patriot, concerned about his country, concerned about his state, concerned about his city of Los Angeles. And increase in the minimum wage there could increase it nationwide. Can do it in California. Why can't we do it elsewhere? Particularly in the bigger states that are run by Democrats. Illinois, with Pritzker, and of course the interim governor in New York is also a Democrat. But this is the problem, folks. It's corporate America wants everything. They want their cake, they want the frosting, they want everything else, and they don't want to pay for it. They want everything handed to them, just like the tax breaks that are going to the oil companies that were in the Manchin cinema bill, as Alan Grayson called it yesterday. Just let Manchin run, write the entire bill, which pretty much was the case. Now, as we found out from Alex Lawson yesterday, it was not the case in terms of where we were, in getting the good things, the climate change issue, the 10 Medicare drugs, prescription drugs. All of those things were really important. But let me just say this. If we're not going to be able, in my view, to get more than just the 10, then, that's not going to suffice for very long. If we're going to allow continuation of more and more oil subsidies in the oil companies, then that's going to be problematic as you get 2030. I mean, look, the climate change issue, folks, is, in my opinion, something that is not talked about enough on mainstream television. You get occasionally when some bad storms or the heat wave that we just had across the country, it's still affecting many states. That ends up, being an occasional story, and somebody will mention the word climate change. But I will tell you, when we ran 1510 in Boston, a lot of the weather people there, well known in Boston, they were deniers of climate change. These are people making six figures in, on the major networks, the local market in Boston, which I think at the time still is, I believe, number 10 media market in the country. So when you have that in mainstream TV, on the weather, in local news, oh, it's just cyclical. Oh, it's just a different thing. Now, I did notice again, I think I reported this a couple of weeks ago on CNN, they were talking about this, about climate change and about the weather patterns and about the heat, about the storms. That's great. But frankly, we're going to need a lot more of it if we're going to beat the deadline of 2030. What happened with Biden, and I give him credit, as I will, when the administration and Congress does the right thing, which they did over the weekend. But we're going to need to continue to put, the pedal to the metal, because if we let up, these guys will crush us. They got enough money to do it. They got enough power to do it. They got the wherewithal. They have an entire party at their disposal. You tell Mitch McConnell and the Republicans to jump, and they say, how high? That's what it is. And a lot of Democrats are also on that. What did Dick Durbin, the number 2 guy behind Schumer, who many people will call the, bagman for Wall Street because of New York, and he's obviously the senator there. Durbin's number 2, and a guy I like who's been on this show. He once called the Senate, owned stocked and barrel by the banks. There you go. That's the reality. Now, it can be all gloom and doom, and we can throw a lot of BS across the wall. We can try for the incremental change that we saw on the weekend, which we have to do, and we have to keep our foot, again, on the accelerator. We cannot let up, whether it's on healthcare, whether it's on the environment, whether it's on education, whether it's on the minimum wage, as Joe Sandberg has, like I say, been fighting for and running into obstacle after obstacle. As Tom Petty said in that great song, won't back down. It won't be easy. That's a line that nobody talks about. It won't be easy, but you can't back down. That's the way I see it, folks. I just think that we have to continue to push the agenda. If we don't, it's all going to blow up. But I think that if we were to just throw our hands up in the air and say, all right, to hell with it, they all suck. Just, we'll just throw a lot of garbage from the left and from the right, and who cares? That's what the Trumpies are doing right now, declaring civil war inciting people to commit violence, like what happened in Ohio, almost happened in Ohio yesterday when they went to the FBI office with a cache of weapons. We have to be better. We have to gain the trust of the American people, even if the majority of them think they're all corrupt. Many of them are, tragically. We can do better, but we're going to have to fight, and we're going to have to fight peacefully, and we're going to have to fight every day, no days off. I think that's Bill Belichick, who's an overrated coach. Used to be great, but he had Tom Brady too. All right, well, that's another question for another day. Let's go to the phones. We're going to start with our good friend Tom in Los Angeles, and then we'll go to good friend John in Minneapolis. Tom, you are first this hour. What say you, sir? Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go right ahead, man. I can hear you very well.
All right. Did you hear my first comment?
I did not.
I had said that one, we the people are the government ultimately, and we must never forget that. And two, the Republican Party is the party of pro-death and of pro-murder. What I wanted to say is when we ever talk about the word subsidy, we use the word what it is. It's corporate welfare. And we really need to stay strong with that messaging. I think also what we need to do is whenever anybody says anything that is not true about our candidates or whatever, that we have got to have, the candidates have got to have some type of rapid reply. Report. And not just
like Beto O'Rourke did the other day. I know you sent me that video. Yep. I got about three or four other people, Tom. Yeah.
Fetterman, does the same thing. These guys, like I said, Mark's scorecard or Mark's team they've putting together, that's where I would put Beto O'Rourke. I'd put Fetterman. I'd put Lucas Kuntz still. I'd still put Tim Ryan. I would put, some of these people together, Mandela Barnes, putting together a squad and actually asking them before we ever vote for them, we need to be asking them where they stand on certain policy issues so we can hold their feet to the fire when they actually get in there and win. Not just, hey, give me another donation, but what am I giving you the donation for? And we have got to be able to be committed to that.
Well, one of the things, Tom, that I've been talking about, and many others too, is the fact that we should have all three of them in some kind of forum. Ryan may be more moderate or more conservative than the other two, but they all understand the issue of being in the Midwest where jobs were lost thanks to NAFTA, thanks to TPP, which were Democrat and Republicans combined together to get job loss and send those jobs overseas. So, there are avenues there. So if one is more pro-choice than the other, one is another person who is more focused, they're all focused on gun safety. Milwaukee, Cleveland, Philadelphia all have massive problems with gun violence. And a lot of it is, bringing guns into the different jurisdictions. You can go to Camden, New Jersey, walk in to buy a quart of milk and get a gun on the way out the door. It's that simple. Everybody has done the research. It's a little better now, but you can still do it in Philadelphia and Camden across the way.
The issues I want to know about, Jeff, is are they in favor of a vote to get money out of politics? Are they in favor of a vote to add DC statehood? Those are the things that I want to know, because then that brings us more people. Maybe some of these other issues, gun safety, I would think everyone's for gun safety. 70% of the American people are. But, we need to know, where do you stand on money in politics? We got to get money out of politics. What is it that you would vote for? Because if we have those 50 votes to get rid of money out of politics and get some of the lobbyists kicked out of Washington, and like you said, have the people maybe restore back and go back to their own home districts and actually meet with the people where it's ground level, I mean, these are the things I want to know more about. I mean, I am for a woman's right to choose. And if those are some thickly, prickly areas or whatever it is for some of these people that have constituents in these areas, then I'm not going to hold their feet to the fire on those things. But I am going to hold their feet to the fire on the big things. Because if we got money out of politics, then those other things would actually fall to the wayside. And it would not be as major of a thing. If these guys are just in office just to get rich, then we don't want them in office. Sorry,
I agree with you 100%. That goes to the idea that we need to get a real strong way of denying people, and that's what the problem was in the state that you were very much engaged with Mr. Coons in Missouri. You cannot allow an heir to the Budweiser Foundation, the Budweiser Anheuser-Busch family. You cannot allow them to come in and swoop in at the last second and buy the election. This goes on both sides of the aisle. But this is the problem that you have. And the Democrats, if they want to be different than the Republican Party, they want to contrast with the Republican Party, they have to show that they're going to be different. They're not going to play by that rule of just buy the election. I mean, she didn't even know
Jeff,
what Citizens United was about.
You don't think it would be inappropriate to ask them where they would vote on H.R. 1, do you? I mean, the thing is, I want to know if they would have voted yes on H.R. 1. You know what I'm saying? Because HR 1 was about getting money out of politics.
Let me research
voting.
that.
It was about, I mean, that's why it was the House resolution first vote.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that would be the kind of thing that we would want to find. That's the kind of thing we'd want to know ahead of time. So we can push them in that direction rather than that. So,
we need to push them. I know you got the power. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you. And thank you for fighting always. And
have a great
understanding
weekend.
what the message is. You too, man. All right, let's go to John in Minneapolis. Thank you, Tom. Always great to talk to our good friend Tom in Los Angeles. John in Minneapolis, say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we had our own primary election here, and Omar won, but only she squeaked by against a corporate supported candidate, probably something like, 4-1 in terms of, what this person spent compared to what Omar spent. And, they also had a few other candidates. So it was an open primary and there were 5 candidates, just to take her down a peg. I mean, when she first was elected, 2018, she had 78% of the vote, when she won. I mean, that was in the general election, though.
By the way, was this election last night, on a Thursday night? Was this election was a Wednesday?
No, it was, I think,
Tuesday.
Let's see, it was on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
August. It was like last week. Yeah, it was the last week. And yeah, it was on a Tuesday. I don't know why we have to do things on Tuesdays.
That's
a primary,
it's
right?
the agricultural thing. Yeah, exactly. It is the primary.
Yeah.
I got about 30 seconds, John. Go ahead and finish.
And then, yeah, sure. Well, Don Samuels, who ran against her, he had a suit against him for a child drowning under his care, and then when he was asked about it, and this was on Twitter, he said, "Well, I'm a much better politician than than a babysitter," something to that effect. That was one thing, and he's like a very middle of the road, kind of a Bill Cosby type when it comes to young black men. I don't want to badmouth him in a sense, but Ilhan Omar has much more experience now in national politics, and there really is very little difference except that he's very pro-police, and it's not that she doesn't support the police. Yeah, she does support the police.
No, I mean, she's
that's what he ran.
Police, as everybody who is concerned about police reform, they want police. They just don't want police banging the heads of people and killing them in the process. I mean, everybody wants to have their property and their life protected. John, thank you. We'll talk to you later in the broadcast, my friend. It's the Jeff Santos Show. Back in a flash.
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863 or online at lonestartransfer.com. That's lonestartransfer.com.
So you want to go green? How about going green with your greenbacks? Try aspiration.com. Shares your values on the environment and climate change. Ever wonder what the big banks do with your deposits? Well, it goes to fossil fuel companies for sure. Not at aspiration.com. Your deposits will never fund fossil fuel projects like pipelines, oil rigs, and coal mines. With aspiration.com, you get 55,000 free in-network ATMs, 3 to 5% cash back on conscientious coalition purchases, personal impact score to help you shop to match your values, and an option to plant a tree with every roundup. Deposits in your Aspiration Spend and Save account are FDIC insured up to $2.46 million per deposit by being swept to FDIC member institutions.
To find out more, you can go to aspiration.com/revolution.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
.33 past the hour. It is the Jeff Santos Show that you are tuned into. Coming to you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're going to be chatting with John Shelton in a couple of minutes. Of course, Vice President, AFT Wisconsin, and also a partner of our good friend Harvey Kay there at University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. We'll get to talk to John momentarily. Folks, we're keeping an eye on what's going on today in the release of the information with our former president, Mr. 45. Again, my goal here, orange hair meets orange suit. Looks very good. It's a fashion statement. We hope that is the case, and we are, going to be monitoring that as we go along. Our next guest is indeed John Shelton. He is a associate professor and chair of democracy and justice studies. He is the author of Teacher Strike: Public Education, the Making of the New American Political Order, which was the winner and as a dissertation of the Labor and Working Class History Association's Herbert Gutman Prize for Best Dissertation in 2014, and the International Standing Conference of the History of Education's first book award in 2018. Quite impressive, Mr. Shelton. How are you today?
I'm great, Jeff, and I don't know where you dug up that bio. Probably off the website at the at the university.
Yeah.
But it's
you got
but
it.
it's
Yeah,
great.
that's exactly
It's
right.
great to be. it's great to be here. And I saw that they're thinking about charging Trump with the Espionage Act, which maybe is the first time that that law signed into law by Woodrow Wilson has actually paid off. So we'll
Yeah,
keep watching.
finally something that a very racist individual has done. Well, we're here after a few weeks, and I wanted to talk to you about this. And there's an article in the Washington Post which you were quoted in, and we'll get into that in a minute too. But one of the things that to me is going to separate Democrats from the Trumpies, from Republicans as a whole, is the issue of labor. And it's obviously, as in your role as vice president of AFT in Wisconsin, you get it. A lot of our people on the show today, whether it's John Nichols or your good friend and mine, Harvey Kaye, understand the real commitment to labor that the Democratic Party needs to go. And they're running into a whole slew of roadblocks here, in my view. And, it's exciting to see the young folks, Starbucks, what's happening with Amazon, people of color engaged there, Kristen Smalls, of course, African-American. So it's all good, but there are a lot of things that are not going reported. Again, this was the article, Mr. Bierman, I think his name was, the Washington Post wrote, but they're not a lot. I'm wondering, as somebody who really is concerned about this, obviously it's part of your life, of how concerned you are. It's great to have a few headlines, but when you have a Congress that could easily switch and is anti-labor, to say the max, you have people in the White House who are anti-labor. So obviously people like Marty Walsh and Joe Biden himself are friends of labor, but it's not exactly A to Z. Your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that you're talking about this because, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are looking at a lot of the big, labor. I mean, I think it's not an exaggeration to say, we're about 10 years into a major labor uprising in this country, right? I mean, we've had decades of, I'm sure Harvey talks about this all the time, class war from above. But, I think really, starting with teacher strikes in the past decade, and the fight for $15 and our Walmart, and now even more recently with the successful Amazon representation election and lots of other Amazon warehouses looking to organize, and the Starbucks representation elections. Workers want to organize, especially young workers. I mean, public opinion polls on this show that workers in dramatic numbers, if they could have access to a union, they would. And by and large, those are young people driving those polls because of the lack of economic security that we've seen generation after generation now. And so, we do see this uprising happening. I think what makes it difficult for workers to translate that into, really successful working class power is how the apparatus of labor law is kind of weighted against them. So, our labor law, at least for folks in the private sector, for me in the public sector, it's a little bit different. But in the private sector, the legislation goes back to the 1930s. And it worked really well in the 1930s, right? The idea was that workers at a given work site would hold an election. They would decide, who to have represent them. And then they would have a collective bargaining relationship with, say, a big employer, right? Well, what's happened is since the 1930s, first of all, there was a major kind of revision to the law in 1947, led by reactionaries, Republican reactionaries, and some Southern Democrats in Congress that weakened National Labor Relations Act. But then the big thing is, it's more relevant for us, is since about the 1960s and 70s, employers have invested a lot of resources into finding ways within labor law to make it difficult for workers to organize. So, we could talk about this for hours, but just a couple of the big things. Number one, employers will fire leaders of union organizing drives. So that's actually what happened to Christian Smalls and Amazon, right?
That's right.
You're not allowed to do it. Exactly. You're not allowed to do it. It's illegal. But the problem is that the recourse that workers have is basically, at the end of probably a year of appeals from the employer, is they get their job back, essentially. So there's no teeth to it. So that's number one. Number two, when workers start talking about organizing and start doing card check and then leading up to an election. Employers do everything from pick off individual workers and have conversations with them to captive audience meetings where on company time they can, it's limitless. Essentially they can hold them there and tell them all the reasons why they shouldn't join a union, essentially threaten and to say like, hey, we're not going to be economically competitive anymore, we may have to actually shut down. And it's for the most part perfectly legal for them to do that. And so that's what's happening in places like Starbucks. Right now, the company is holding these captive audience meetings, and Starbucks has even gone beyond that. They actually, and this is most definitely an unfair labor practice, but they're getting away with it so far, is to give raises to workers that haven't voted to have union representation. Right? That's patently illegal, but it just shows that these companies are going to stop at nothing to prevent their workers from organizing. And so to get to the point about Congress, we need labor law reform very badly to level the playing field. We're not asking for special treatment for workers, but just make it possible for them to win elections without this employer interference.
Talking with John Shelton here on the Jeff Santos Show. Again, associate professor at the University of Wisconsin Green Bay with our good friend Harvey Kaye. And again, also vice president AFT, teachers union there. Great teachers union. Randy Weingarten has supported this show over the last decade or so. The president of the union, and of course, teaching urban centers around the country. Most notably, over the last few years, you saw the importance of having a union in a place like Chicago, taking on the likes of Rahm Emanuel and so forth there. Let me ask you, the excitement that I have seen, particularly with the young folks involved with Starbucks. They went from 0 in Buffalo to 211 now. What I worry about is if they meet roadblocks. These are folks that some who may want a role in politics, maybe at a local level, maybe they want to go on to Congress. But if they hit the roadblocks, how difficult will it be to maintain their involvement in civic society? In other words, do you feel that if they run into more roadblocks, you could lose a generation which seemingly understands the world of labor? I mean, there've been polls for over a decade. You can connect the Generation Z to the millennials that say, they want more unions, they want more government involvement. But if they run into walls, that at some point, I guess you can make the comparison to all those who fought against the Vietnam War, and even though it was ended in the 1970s, a lot of people dropped out after that, and so on. How concerned are you as a labor leader that these roadblocks that are ensconced right now, could deter younger people from maintaining their engagement going forward? Your thoughts?
I'm not really that worried about that, and the reason for that, to your point about the war, you're right. You did have kind of a splintering of the war effort, but it's important to remember that over time, those folks ended the war, right? I mean, they effectively changed the conversation about the war and ended it. It took maybe longer than a lot of folks would have liked, and I think when you look back at social movements in American history. First of all, to get to the point where we got the Wagner Act in the 1930s, you're talking about 60 years of conflict, oftentimes violent, by the way. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know about this because, the way workers are treated poorly now, but you think it's bad now. I mean, think back to what things were like in the late 19th century. No child labor laws,
the
workers companies sending in goons to basically just fire on workers who are organizing. And in the face of that, workers continued to organize because they knew that organizing was the only way they were going to actually improve their lives. Same thing with the civil rights movement. I mean, you think about, to me, that the image I have in my mind of social activism in this country is thinking about the civil rights protesters who marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, knowing what was there on the other side waiting for them. And that's the tradition that we have as Americans, is people taking it, into their own hands to fight to improve their lives, and doing so in circumstances that often don't seem all that promising. So I think, the authorities in this country can try to prevent workers from organizing, but they're always going to continue to do it, because they know that it's the only way that they're going to improve their lives. And I would say, even for those Starbucks workers who don't win, the process of organizing and understanding that when you're in things together, it makes things better for you. And even if you lose, it gives you a sense of camaraderie, actually propels you onto the next thing. What I do worry about is the possibility of some kind of dramatic reactionary movement, that would, clamp down on civil liberties to the extent that it would be difficult for workers to organize,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
We
like,
already see
you
that
think about what
just
happened.
with
You
this
think about what
stupid thing
happened.
in Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, I mean, you think about
Yeah.
what happens in the next couple of elections, some kind of attempt to steal an election and then use military repression, which I don't think that's, 5 years ago we would have said that's not even possible, but, more and more it's looking like that's within the realm of possibility. That's what I worry about long term in terms of stanching, the kind of organizing that's happening on the ground.
Fascinating. We're going to open up the phone lines for a good friend, John Shelton, here on the Jeff Santos Show, talking labor, talking about the need for the Democratic Party to wrap their hands and their arms around labor. And, Biden has done it, but it's just a few years ago, and when he was vice president, that Barack Obama was definitely silent when the people in Wisconsin were trying to get the American people to get on their side, having people walk out of Wisconsin to sort of, try to save labor in Wisconsin. I don't know if you were involved in that fight, John, as a young man. You're still a young man. But to me, that's the proof in the pudding is, where was Barack? And a lot of people will never forgive him for that. And in 2014, when the Senate they didn't forget him that way. And it to me is, is a reminder in the Democratic Party that there are those who are very good. I mean, we've had Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh, who's an old friend from Boston, as a mayor of Boston, on. I've talked with at the time Senator Biden years ago, and I don't doubt their labor credentials, but there are a lot of people that don't have that background, and they have important positions within the Democratic Party, particularly when that donor base comes to calling. Your thoughts, John?
Yeah, and I think you framed this really well. So, there's been a deficit in terms of the Democratic Party's tangible support for labor, probably going back to the 1960s. And I'm not one of these people that buys into the idea that like the working class now supports Republicans, for whatever reason, but I do think there are working people that have either turned against Democrats and vote Republican, or basically checked out and not voted because they haven't seen Democrats
Right.
making it easier for them to organize. And you can go
The
through
checking
every
out
single
is very
Democrat.
relevant. Yeah.
You can go back through every Democratic administration since the 1970s. Carter doesn't get elected without the support of organized labor, and does almost nothing to support badly needed labor reform that fell 2 votes short of a filibuster in 1978. Clinton promised to pass a law to eliminate striker replacement, which would have been isn't everything that we would have needed, but it would have given workers who were going on strike a lot more protection from employers who would basically fire them and replace them with scabs. Instead of working to pass that, Clinton passed NAFTA, which probably cost him the midterms in 1994 because labor basically said no way. Then Obama,
I remember that fight.
he had a chance to push for the EFCA, which would have been card check legislation, which would have, again, helped workers who wanted to have a union to get past a lot of this, recalcitrance from employers. That went nowhere. I mean, he put no effort into it his first couple of years, and that was even before what happened here in Wisconsin with Act 10. So, I do think that, the Biden administration has largely gotten the message. Appointing Walsh as Secretary of Labor was a big step, and that they've repopulated the National Labor Relations Board with very pro-labor folks, which is great. But, we badly need the PRO Act. We badly need it, and need it at this moment because, again, we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of elections. And my frustration is that, this may be one of the last moments in a long time. And even though, you've had most of the Senate support overturning the filibuster to pass a law like this, I haven't seen the Biden administration speak to that forcefully enough. And I know that, Manchin and Sinema are, resistant for whatever reason. And that's true, but to me, I'd like to see the Biden administration signify more forcefully that this really matters right now. In addition to protecting women's right to bodily integrity and all the other things that we know are so important right now, but make a full-throated, forceful case, even if that means putting direct public pressure on Manchin to do this now.
It's really frustrating. As I mentioned at the top of our show, Joe Sandberg, who's a sponsor of the show, is an advocate for the $18 minimum wage. I don't know if you've been following the TikTok of this, but there's delay after delay on that. Now, Gordon, this is not so much a labor issue, but it is a wage issue for a lot of working class Americans. And they're putting roadblocks, they're quoting the National Restaurant Association. Oh, it's going to get closed down restaurants, all this other scare tactics, which you always hear, right? But the power of the lobbyists, to me, this is an unreported story over the last 40 years or so of the incredible power. Occasionally you'll get somebody with Frontline or some other alternative publication will do something. There's some great stuff, and whether it's Jacobin or The Nation or the American Prospect, they'll go in a deep dive into it. But to me, this is the other part of it, is that the lobbying arm, that silent killer that is out there. It's not only the Republican Party or those who's funding the Republican Party, and a lot of corporate Democrats, including Manchin and Sinema. Again, I've been one of these guys, John, that in my commentary earlier is that I don't believe that you can give up. You just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing on a daily basis, and you can't do the end zone dance and spike the ball because you got a victory on Sunday. You just have to keep moving and doing. As I was joking yesterday, it's way before your time, but there used to be a guy named Billy White Shoes Johnson who had like a dance in the end zone for the then Houston Oilers, now the Tennessee Titans. And, you can do one of those if you want, if you're Joe Biden or anybody else, but you got to keep moving the ball because these folks have all the money. They have all the desire to be the, powerful entities that they already are, and they don't want to lose an ounce of it. Your thoughts, then we'll take a call.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And, I think what makes it even more, more important right now, like pressing, this is emergency level stuff, is that, the folks, driving the Republican Party right now, they're not like they're not just the Chamber of Commerce, right? Who wants to keep the minimum wage low and, prevent workers from having a union. These are people that want to, prevent democratic elections in the future. They want to give state legislatures the ability to nullify the will of voters. They want to do things like completely shut down, as we've seen in Wisconsin. The legislature, passed a bill that would essentially censor us from talking about things like race and gender. This is supposedly the party of, smaller government that, wants to allow academic freedom on campuses. That only because our governor vetoed it do we not have that law. So, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about right-wing reactionary stuff that we've never seen really come to power in our country. But the model for this is look at some of these dictatorships, these right-wing dictatorships in Latin America. Sure. That's what we're talking. That's what we're up against.
In Eastern Europe, yeah.
So yeah, sure, celebrate the the package that was just agreed to with Manchin and et cetera. But you got to keep your foot to the pedal because that's the only way we're going to protect democracy in this country.
No doubt. All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's go just across the border there from Wisconsin to Minnesota and talk to our good friend John. Whose family comes from a labor background and so forth. John, you're next with John Shelton of the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. and of course, the vice president of AFT Wisconsin. Go right ahead, John. I'll call you John D to make sure you're not confusing people here. John D in Minneapolis. You're next with John Shelton in Wisconsin. John in Minnesota, can you hear us? Can we get our good friend from Minnesota on the line? All right, let's.
He's probably intimidated by having a Packers fan here. I'm just gonna say.
He originally grew up in New York, so I don't know if he's still a Giants fan, but
okay.
we'll find that out. All right, John. 1, 2, 3. Let's go to Tom in Los Angeles. If Tom is there, Tom, can you hear me? I think actually he's gone. All right. Well, we'll see if we can get either one of them on the phone here momentarily. Boca Raton, just let me know through the IFB if we have John on the line or not. Okay, Mr. Shelton, this article that appeared in the Los Angeles Times, Nowhere Bierman and Don Lee that you talked with, there's a quote in there from somebody who I really appreciate, Mary Kay Henry, saying there's a great reckoning and workers have had it, said Mary Kay Henry, president of the Service Employees International Union, one of the largest and most influential unions. Yet, says Nowhere and Mr. Lee, yet even as experts acknowledge the newfound excitement around labor, they caution that unions which have suffered decades of declining membership are unlikely to turn the tide. When you hear this, is this something that, that you want to sort of answer, John, and say, look, yeah, it's going to be hard, but we can do X, Y, and Z, to put more pressure on. Mr.
Yeah, well, I talked to, I think Don was the journalist that I talked to, and we had a pretty lengthy conversation about this situation. And one of the things that I said to him was that, when we look at change historically, things typically, big social movements typically don't change in a linear manner, right? So one of the problems we have with the organizing of a company like Starbucks is that every single one of these local workplaces has to vote, to support the union, which, in some ways makes it easier because you're talking about, like, in some cases, 10, 20, 30 people. In other cases, though, 20 seconds. So things don't happen in a linear, I'm going to just shift past that. Things don't happen in a linear manner, and sometimes working people and other activists will surprise you and things will catch on momentum. And so that was going to be my point about Starbucks.
Yeah, no, I got a couple of more seconds.
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
An Iranian man has been charged by the U.S. with plotting to kill former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton.
We face a rising threat from authoritarian regimes who seek to reach beyond their own borders to commit acts of repression, including inside the United States. This is an especially appalling example of the government of Iran perpetrating egregious acts of transnational violence in violation of U.S. laws and our national sovereignty.
Satellite images appear to show extensive damage and several destroyed Russian warplanes at a Crimea air base following explosions earlier this week.
These are the first independent images to confirm the extent of the damage caused by these explosions on Tuesday. They've been released by the US-based company Planet Labs, and they seem to contradict Russia's account of what happened. Moscow has denied that any aircraft, there was damage to any aircraft there after those explosions, and Moscow also denies that these explosions were caused by any attack.
China on Thursday renewed its threat to attack Taiwan following almost a week of war games near the island.
Of course, the statement of China goes against the facts and reality in the two straits, and it also goes against the international law. China was merely using US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan as an excuse to create a new normality to intimidate Taiwan's people.
More shelling of Ukraine's nuclear power plant has been reported, with Ukraine and Russia again blaming each other for the attack.
Any attack to a nuclear plant is a suicidal thing, and I hope that those attacks will end. And at the same time, I hope that the IAEA will be able to have access to the plant and to exercise its mandate competencies.
This is the latest news headlines. Gaming companies are facing a slowdown in demand for video games from pandemic highs, raising doubts about their ability to weather out an economic downturn. Rising prices and lack of hit titles have added to problems for video game publishers Activision Blizzard Incorporated and Electronic Arts that are also battling supply chain delays and a shift in consumer choices due to easing lockdowns. A closely watched government economic gauge showed that consumer prices in the United States were virtually unchanged from June to July, an indication that hot-running inflation has begun to cool. Most analysts expected the gauge to show that prices increased slightly by 0.2% for the month, which would have been viewed as a positive sign. Instead, the gauge showed no change at all, which is seen as even more hopeful. A Fulton County judge has ordered Rudy Giuliani, former President Donald Trump's personal attorney, to travel to Atlanta next week to deliver in-person testimony about possible criminal interference in Georgia's 2020 election after Giuliani delayed testimony to recover from a medical procedure. Barring any further directives from Giuliani's doctor, Judge Robert McBurney considered all transportation options before he ordered Giuliani to appear in person next week. On a train, on a bus, or Uber, or whatever it would be, the judge said, that's plenty of time to make the trip. President Joe Biden on Wednesday enacted legislation that will expand the Department of Veterans Affairs, providing health care support for millions of veterans, as well as their families and caretakers who were exposed to toxic burn pits. Known as the PACT Act, the package grants more time to enroll in VA-provided care for veterans exposed to toxins while serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, according to the White House. And that's the latest news headlines. I'm Alan Edwards.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863, or online at LoneStarTransfer.com. That's LoneStarTransfer.com.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarkoni, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain. But I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
This is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America. Together. Investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
It is hour 2 of the Jeff Santos Show, and welcome to folks coming to you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It is great to be with you today on a Friday edition. Of course, it's Harvey Day on Friday. Good friend, Professor Harvey K. will be with us momentarily, and, of course, via video today, of course, second time in a row now. And we'll be joined by good friend John Nichols, who is on the road in Iowa. I joked earlier, maybe he's at the great Dyersville, where they played baseball last night. I'm not sure about that, but we'll bring in both of them momentarily, folks. Again, if you want to check out the broadcast of the Jeff Santos Show, go to Facebook Live and put in the search bar Jeff Santos Show. Focus like a laser beam on that any time of the day. We want to have you watch the show, and frankly, it's a great opportunity for many of you to understand what is at stake on the issues of the day. We're very excited to bring you the guest that we have every Friday, Mr. Harvey K., Professor Harvey K., from the great place in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He is, of course, the University of Wisconsin Green Bay Professor Emeritus, written a number of books on the great Mr. Payne, and, of course, FDR, which we always talk about. He and Alan Minsky, joins us on Fridays, usually at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 o'clock Pacific, have put together the fantastic 21st century version of FDR's 1944 Economic Bill of Rights, which is so much needed in the country right now. It's great to bring Harvey K. with us. Harvey, Professor, how are you, sir?
I'm okay, though. As I look at the screen, I think I've frozen on the screen. Anybody there handling that? So have you.
Well,
actually,
we're
the two
trying.
of us have frozen on the screen. So
Yes, yeah. Well, I think just for a short amount of time.
Okay.
And we'll bring in good friend John Nichols. Let me know, Freddie, in the IFB, when we have Mr. Nichols ready to rock and roll. We'll. Okay, fantastic. Nichols will join us just in a few minutes. So, Harvey, we had a great opportunity. Well, first of all, I don't know if you can see, but in your honor, I wore a nice white shirt today for you. You were
I did
concerned
notice
about
the
my
collar.
attire
Very
last
nice, buddy.
time. So,
Right.
I hope this meets your approval.
It does
it's very
definitely.
important to
And
me.
by the way, I rarely demand appropriate attire, but I'm only thinking of you when I suggested moving from a T-shirt to a collared shirt.
Well, it was a casual Friday look, and frankly, it was so damn hot. As I said to you privately, I just wanted to wear something that I didn't really have to worry about. But anyways, that was then. We will be wearing some sport coats for you in the fall as we get into pre or football weather. So that will occur. So Packers and all that
I'll
stuff.
wear green and gold if I have to.
That would be a good look, actually. That would be interesting.
I could wear my Packers cap occasionally. Sure.
Yeah, a little
No,
cheese
I don't
head,
do the.
I
I never. I'm very
you
glad
lay the
that
line
other
down
people,
there, right?
No, I definitely am not cheesehead material. I mean, it's all well and good, but it's not me.
Well, from the photograph that we now see, I think we are joined by the great journalist just south of you there, the Madison Maven, the national affairs correspondent of The Nation magazine on the road in Iowa, our good friend John Nichols. John, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jeff, and I think I can hear Harvey as well.
Oh, fantastic. Well, two fantastic Wisconsinites with me here. If you are watching on Facebook Live, you can see the great photo of John Nichols, the model, and of course Harvey K, everyone's working man in that bunker of his there in Green Bay. It's great to have you both in all seriousness. All right, guys. So I'm going to start off here. On Sunday, I think we all probably were greatly satisfied that we Democrats and President Biden finally had a win. At the same time, our friends at the Lever and John, the work that you've done and all know that there were a lot of things that we liked that were not done, that were only 10 prescription drugs that were in that packet. There was obviously still a lot of giveaways to oil companies and so on and so forth. But it was a good day, and I went into Monday's broadcast with a really good feeling. And then something happened on Monday night that we're still talking about today. So I'm going to start with you, John. Is there a scenario here where the Democrats can still ride, even though the Mar-a-Lago situation is there, and a lot of people are focused on that, the mainstream media? As I watch CNN here in our monitor, that's what the news is. It's not about the great wins for Biden and Democrats. So what does this week mean to you now on this Friday as you talk to us from Iowa? I hope you got a chance to watch the game last night there in Dyersville.
A little bit. Actually, I was
Good.
speaking. I didn't get to watch much of the game. I was speaking at an event. So, but I followed it. It's a very big deal in Iowa.
That's right.
You asked about this week, and here's the bottom line. It's amazing how ungrateful our Republican friends are, right? Because
Yeah.
they
Not surprising,
basically
but yeah.
got their teeth handed to. Yeah, they got their teeth handed to them all week long. This has been a terrible week for the Republicans, right? If you go back, gas prices are down, inflation flattened. You got the CHIPS Act passed, which has at least an element of investment in hopefully jobs growth. There's people that criticize it, I think, appropriately in some ways, but it's essentially a good piece of planning. And then you got the Inflation Reduction Act passed, which again, as you well point out, is very imperfect, but it's moving us in the direction of at least some industrial policy, some planning that aims toward job creation and some growth-oriented initiatives that make a lot of sense, particularly investing in saving the planet and improving access to healthcare. So you put all those pieces together, that's a pretty amazing week for Joe Biden and the Democrats. It's not perfect, but their biggest problem, right? Gas prices, inflation, that's getting better. And the biggest question, can they govern? That's getting better. And then all of that kind of gets pushed aside by the fact that Donald Trump experiences a search of his Mar-a-Lago compound because he stole and is hiding top secret government documents. And the Republicans are like, well, how could you raid Mar-a-Lago? Well, in truth, that story has pushed aside a lot of the positive stories for the Democrats, and the Republicans are using it to mobilize their base.
Sure.
In fact, it has caused them to circle more into Trump than they have been. On balance, though, and you asked about the week, so let's go to the core balance. If we're looking at the pure politics of it all, this is the best week of Joe Biden's presidency in more than a year.
Yeah, since the American Rescue Plan, when they gave out the checks and he was at 60%, right?
Yeah, it's by far the best week that he's had. Perfect? No. But you combine the fact that he's actually governing and succeeding, that inflation and gas prices seem to be heading in the right direction. And, the fact of the matter is that this ongoing, bad piece of theater that is Donald Trump has taken a new turn that, while it will not cause his base to break with him, it will cause any rational person to say, wow, Donald Trump was hiding nuclear secrets down at Mar-a-Lago. That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, not good at all. All right, let's bring in Harvey K here. Professor K, I look at this, and you and I have been very critical of the Biden administration and of Joe Biden himself for good reasons. I give them credit, and I think that there is an opportunity here, even with this, disgusting scenario that is happening in Mar-a-Lago. Disgusting in the sense that, the more that comes out is just, it's just more crap. We were joking yesterday about, All in the Family and the toilet bowl, audio that would come out of a great friend Norman Lear's All in the Family show when they would, Archie would yell down to Edith, there's something wrong with the toilet, and but that's every day in the Trump administration. I mean, he uses it to flush down papers. All that being said, Harvey, it's now, I think, upon the Democrats, maybe it starts on Monday, to start messaging the things that were accomplished, crow about them. And, I mentioned, you may remember him, Billy White Shoes Johnson of the then Houston Oilers would do a dance in the end zone. It's not time to spike the ball, as many of the athletes of the 21st century have done, but it's time, to have a small celebration, but time then to move on and sell this package and sell the idea that we got to do more on healthcare, more on the environment, more on taxing the wealthy. And if you don't, you're going to end up back at 33 or 39% where Biden has been. Your thoughts, Mr. K, Professor K.
Well, for a start, I think it's really, really a shame that you guys are claiming that Donald Trump stashed 25 boxes, crates, when we all know that it was probably Melania. Come on. Or every time one of those FBI agents went in, they probably had a box in their back pockets to, that kind of thing. No, I mean, seriously speaking, that I think we're at the point now where everyone has got to be saying, why would he have 25 boxes? We don't know exactly how many of them might well be the classified documents. Although I saw something on the television before I came up indicating the mix. No, I mean, it's really astounding. And yet it's also interesting in light of his intimacies with Putin in the early stage of his presidency and before, apparently, that no one has even I haven't seen anyone mention Putin's name in the course of these revelations. Just saying, okay?
Yes.
Just saying.
Just saying. I was talking about it yesterday because he's, to me, the obvious guy that they're hiding things that is safe from. But yes, go ahead, Professor.
Yeah, no, it's wild. Now, as far as the infrastructure, reduction plan. Sorry, I'm getting the name wrong, but not the infrastructure. Listen
inflation.
To me. We had the infrastructure reduction plan last year. Yeah. That was it. The infrastructure reduction plan was last year. The inflation reduction plan.
Call it the Manchin bill, as Alan Grayson did.
Yeah, well, I love the enthusiasm you two have and the credit you're willing to give. I'm not exactly sure what credit belongs in Biden's camp. Might well be Schumer's, though I can tell you that I was listening to a podcast the other day when a journalist said, Schumer is the most lovable evil guy in Washington. Okay. And yeah, no, this has been by the way, I'm saying all this because it's been
Those are
truly
words
wild.
that Chuck Schumer, I don't know if I can connect. John and I have covered Schumer for a long time. I was in New York. Never lovable. I wouldn't go as far as evil. I mean,
now
notorious maybe, but maybe I don't know about evil.
No,
but go ahead.
There are elements in this deal. Look, this deal is just like a first step. Truly a first step,
Yes,
but admittedly
right.
a bigger, but relatively speaking, a much bigger step than we have seen in a very long time. But let me move on from that because I don't want to sound cynical about it. I think there is stuff to like and there's stuff to say. Can't the Democrats ever get it together? The more important question is you raised the question. Now they should be able to go out and make something of it. Now the sad part is that they haven't known how to make much of anything for the last it's more than a year and a half now, and it's one has to wonder what goes on in that White House and when they meet with their congressional leadership that they can't figure out a way to really translate however long it took to get here a victory into a politics for November. And lastly, because I want to comment on all the things said about I'm with you and John, the reduction as it looks in terms of the price of oil, etc., could be the best thing to happen. Absolutely the best thing, because the question of inflation is the kind of thing that everyone experiences on the ground, to put it bluntly, right? You go in and all of a sudden you're paying incredible prices in American terms for gas. You've already been struggling to make ends meet. If indeed inflation can come down and the Democrats can get out the message that now we're hoping to move ahead, it would be wonderful. Though, in fact, inflation is a global problem and it may or may not be able to come down as far. It may not come down as far as we would like until it's really addressed in a more effective way. Meanwhile, these are things that one could build a politics on. I just wish I had enough faith in this band in D.C., the Bidenettes, to translate it into a politics.
Now that one is a good one. I have to use that.
Thank you.
The Bidenettes. Talking with our great friend, Professor Harvey Kaye, and another great friend, John Nichols. John, of course, is usually with us on Wednesdays. We were off on Wednesday, care of family business, not the family business that the Godfather would take care of, but just family.
Oh, can I just add one other thing?
Yes, go
John
ahead.
And I know John will want to pick up on this. As John probably knows, though maybe he hasn't been on YouTube and television as often as I've been lately. It is the case that for months, Senator Ron Johnson, our Republican embarrassment of a senator, has had these campaign ads, either his own or some PAC's ads, talking about how Ron Johnson, we have to send him back to Washington in the new year. Why? Because he has stood against the big spending Democrats and the inflation that they have caused over and over and over again. That's why I say this question of inflation is really fundamental. And John may have more up-to-date polling than I do, but right now, Mandela Barnes, the Democratic candidate, it's a race that anyone could still win. But given what's transpiring, it's for the Democrats to win right now, I think.
Well, let me hold that thought, John. I agree with Harvey here. I think the opportunity to win in Wisconsin and in Ohio and particularly in Pennsylvania is all there for the taking for the Democrats if they do the right thing. But here is something that, I have been focused on, and I have been saying this now probably going on a year. And I think this goes to the idea of messaging. It actually goes to the idea of those three people, including Mandela Barnes, we now all rally around since he's the candidate, and after all the other candidates get out, is the fact that the administration, corporate Democrats alike, in the Congress, have to understand that they need the progressive wing of the Democratic Party to win in November. And let me just give you an example. The one that I have been really focused on, particularly with the issue of the environment, climate change, the Green New Deal, is utilizing, particularly in the Southwest, where there's a big race with a Latina in Miss Masto in Nevada. And then, of course, the Democrats and Bernie Sanders have done a lot in that state You know, a lot of people pushing back with the Harry Reid son and late Harry Reid and so forth. And of course, there's also a large Latino population in Arizona where Kelly's got a tough fight. I think you have to, you know, open the door, and maybe Markey is a go-between, longtime senator, really has become more progressive in the last 2 years, ran against the Icahn and Kennedy family to the left of the left. I mean, it was shocking, you know, and I've been interviewing Ed Markey for over a decade. And maybe that's the avenue to bring them together. But to me, if you don't utilize a star like AOC, and I understand we talked to Jerry Austin, his Ohio guy, doesn't like her very much. Maybe you don't bring her to Ohio or Wisconsin or Michigan. Fine. But there's a lot of other places in this country where you need to win. And, you know, not to utilize, you know, that bullet, if you might, if you want to use that term, you know, it's to the violence of America today. But, you know, use that. I think that if you use progressives who can deliver a message articulately, I mean, she was on Colbert, for crying out loud. I mean, how many people get on that show that are political heavyweights? So, you know, if you do that, I think you can get the message out. I mean, on the environment, who's better? She's the co-author of the Green New Deal, for crying out loud. Young, attractive, 31-year-old. John?
I think she's maybe gotten a little older. But so look,
32. Okay.
Here's the bottom line. Let's step back from the personalities, and let's step back from, you know, some of the strategizing about particular states to a core concept that has come through, and that is, if you combine the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, what you see the administration finally doing is investment in the future, right? Investment that isn't just, you know, a check to somebody today, but is putting money into things that ought to pay back over the long term, with, you know, a lot of economic improvement and, frankly, improvement for places that have often been left behind. And this is the big deal, because Green New Deal is planning as well. It's investment to achieve things over time. And the problem, and this gets to what Harvey was saying, and the answer being that they're not going to do what you're suggesting they should do. The problem for the Democrats is they don't like to acknowledge that they're doing any planning. They don't like the term industrial policy. They don't like the notion that they're actually, you know, kind of getting it right. But they are, and that's the bizarre thing about it. And ideally, what should be done now is that all of the Democrats, and this is, you know, John Fetterman, Tim Ryan, Mandela Barnes, Kelly in Arizona, Cortez Masto in Nevada, you just run across the whole line.
Right.
Their message ought to be, look, we are committed to investing in the long term in economic transition and, frankly, just economic development that is going to be great for new jobs, new levels of pay, new levels of improvement for communities and for society over time. And it is the embrace of the old New Deal concepts, what Harvey appreciates so much and has taught us so much about. That's the Democratic message. Their message should be, if you vote for the Republicans, all you're going to get is chaos, right? You are going to have, you know, they're not going to invest in anything. They're going to put their money into cutting taxes for the rich and making sure that Joe Biden is the lamest of lame ducks, that inquiries into Donald Trump are shut down. I mean, that's what it's all going to be. It's going to be a nothing burger, and we won't have any kind of progress whatsoever. Whereas the Democrats, and again, this is above their level of messaging. I'm not at all confident that they will do this, but their message ought to be a vote for the Democrats is a vote for a real program of immediate and long-term investment that is going to make America a dramatically stronger, a dramatically more prosperous, and a dramatically more functional country. They ought to make that juxtaposition. If they do, I think it is possible, if they did it with everybody on a united message and real amplification of that message, I think it is possible that the Democrats could undo the midterm curse and actually have political growth in this period, actually have a good year. the way to do that, yeah, it's not to use the term Green New Deal so much as New Deal, a new deal.
Look, we're pushing the FDR agenda all the way. Matter of fact, in the coming weeks, we're going to have an FDR poster behind me, guaranteed. That will be happening. John Nichols, stay right there. Harvey K2. We'll be right back after this timeout. It's the Jeff Santos Show.
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
So you want to go green? How about going green with your greenbacks? Try aspiration.com. Shares your values on the environment and climate change. Ever wonder what the big banks do with your deposits? Well, it goes to fossil fuel companies for sure. Not at aspiration.com. Your deposits will never fund fossil fuel projects like pipelines, oil rigs, and coal mines. With aspiration.com, you get 55,000 free in-network ATMs, 3 to 5% cash back on conscientious coalition purchases, personal impact score to help you shop to match your values, and an option to plant a tree with every roundup. Deposits in your Aspiration Spend and Save account are FDIC insured up to $2.46 million per deposit by being swept to FDIC member institutions.
To find out more, you can go to aspiration.com/revolution.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
Back live, it's the Jeff Santos Show that you are tuned into, coming to you from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're talking with Professor Harvey K., as we normally do here each and every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 o'clock Central. And, of course, we're joined by John Nichols, who is in Iowa today. We've been having some technical problems with his phone line. Hopefully we can get him back. He, of course, is the national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine. We're going to be taking your calls in the matter of a couple of minutes. We're going to go to Joe in Arizona to start out with, and then we will chat with Stephen in California. Let me know, Freddie, when we do have both of those callers line up. Then we'll go to John in Minneapolis in that order. Hopefully we can get all three of them in to discuss this. Okay. So Do we have John Nichols? I think he's back. Oh no, he's actually off. Okay, so Harvey, it's just you and I, and then we're going to take a call from Joe in Arizona.
I was just going to kid John. I was just going to kid John for being in Iowa, because there's these expressions out here in the upper Midwest: Wisconsin nice, Minnesota nice, Iowa nice. And I was going to say, yes. John, you're a Wisconsinite. You don't need the Iowa nice as well. Get back here.
Exactly. Get back, JoJo. I must tell you, I think I agree with John in principle, but I don't think that I'm not very confident, Harvey, that that it's going to occur. I don't think that. To me, it's still very theoretical with the corporatist in the Democratic Party. Bruce Reed is still there.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is really problematic, within the Biden world. I mean, I give him credit. I mean, they overcame it. I mean, Ron Klain overcame the problems of Bruce Reed breathing in his ear as a deputy chief of staff. It wasn't his choice. That was brought in, probably wasn't even Biden's choice. And so, I think that they've been able to thread the needle, but, I'm not that confident that these folks are going to continue to keep fighting. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You talked about the Democrats, the corporate Democrats being more willing to embrace or bring in, for the sake of the campaign, the truly progressives among the truly.
No, I'm not saying that at all, Harvey. I'm saying I'm hoping.
No, before you said no, but you brought that up as a possibility. Sorry.
Right.
And I can tell you, and sorry John isn't here to hear me say this, and that is that when you look back on these last number of months and you think about what the Democratic Party, the president included, did in terms of intervening against the progressive Nina Turner in the Cleveland primary, and you think about what Nancy Pelosi did in favor of Cuellar, who is like in the pocket of the NRA, the fossil fuels. I mean, I could go on and on and on, in order to enable him to just outpace Jessica Cisneros. I mean, frankly, the progressives have every reason, truly, but they're not fools, to really declare war on the rest of the party, because they,
right.
It really, truly, it's just
they've been hit across the head with a sledgehammer.
Absolutely. But it also, and here's the other thing, it also costs the Democrats themselves in a fashion, because for the Democrats to run a truly, if you like, dynamic campaign, they really do need to go all out against the Republicans, right? All out. But they can't go all out because most people are still burned. A lot of people are still burned by what the Democrats have done, or in one sense against the progressives, and in another sense have failed to do, to corral and contain and literally turn the likes of Manchin and Sinema. So it's, there's an element, most Americans who will vote Democratic may be eager to do so, but they know damn well right now that unless the Democrats truly win more seats, they're going to face the same problem over the horizon. So the Democrats can say this is just the beginning, but the beginning of what? Where's Manchin going to go now? Okay.
Well, that's why those three seats that we talked about are so critical. It's not just one. You can't just do it with Fetterman. You got to do it with Barnes, and you got to do it with Ryan, and you got to hold serve in Arizona and Nevada and in Georgia, which are all very, very
close
races.
I would also add that if indeed they get those seats and the Democrats push through the kinds of things that might well antagonize Manchin and Sinema, we have to hope that the Republicans in those states so hate Manchin and Sinema that they wouldn't even accept Manchin and Sinema into their ranks, because that's a danger as we go forward.
Yeah, although I think that, again, I'm all for the Katie Hobbs campaign. We're going to try to get her on this race and get her on this show. Katie Hobbs holds the secret sauce here, because she becomes governor. She goes to Joe Biden and says, hey, You got to do what Jeff Santos has been saying for 2 years now. You got to get Miss Cinema to go to Paris or Rome, become the ambassador to either France or Italy, and let her drink all the wine she wants. Let her be the intern for the French government. You know, she can go to all the different places with Macron and you know, maybe you know, cause a fury there with his older wife and you know, whatever. Only joking, of course, but anyways.
I understand.
But
I do
I'm
understand.
serious. But I mean, utilize that because she'll be the governor.
But I'm just making the point that those two folks, Manchin and Sinema, seriously speaking, and by the way, there were others alongside of them when they blocked the $8
the testers and the $15
an hour minimum wage. But it is the case. But the other thing is this: you know, while we were off, I looked for a little speech by Harry Truman, who John has very little affection for. Okay, and I was. Because there was this speech that Harry Truman used when he was running in 1948, okay, possibly pushed a bit to the left because of John's hero, okay, Henry Wallace.
Henry Wallace,
a man of the progressive
and FDR.
persuasion.
Don't forget, there was a lot of people presumably still left there.
No,
in the Truman administration.
Undeniable. Harry Truman had to live up to FDR. But he gave this speech in a stadium in Los Angeles. The democratic ideal of America is summed up in the 4 freedoms: freedom from want, freedom from fear, freedom of worship, and freedom of speech. The Republican ideal, as I have seen it in action, is summed up in one phrase: big business first. Today, I regret to say, certain business interests are trying to corrupt American idealism. With the Republican Party as their instrument, they are waging a war against the aspirations of our people. Now, that's Harry Truman saying that. Can you even imagine today Joe Biden saying that? Can you imagine him saying it? No, you can't. And that's the problem with the I'm sorry, Johnson. That is the Democratic Party's
John is
problem.
with us. Yes,
they cannot appeal to American working people in the language that might well stir them.
Well, you know, I'm going to say something I think we all agree upon. And
is
that
John
goes
back
with
with
Jerry
us now?
Austin too.
Good.
I believe so. John Nichols, can you hear us?
I've been with you for the last 10 minutes. Yep.
Okay, good.
Oh, 10 minutes. Wow, that's great.
Since the startup. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, here's okay. Well, there are a lot of things going on in Boca Raton right now. They have not having a hurricane there. They may well have one. Let me just say this, John Nichols. Harvey was raising the point about, you know, the Coons and the testers and all the people that are there. You know, my view here is that it needs to be messaged, but it needs to bring in some of the progressive folks. You know, I mean, Fetterman is an example to me. I know a lot of people say, well, you know, Barack Obama was once in a generation, once in a lifetime figure. But I think what he has done, and Trump actually followed this, is that you don't have to have 30 years of experience to be president of the United States. And the reason I mention that is that Fetterman may be, you know, the sort of working class guy, you know, in a sweatshirt that looks like, you know, George the Animal Steel. Remember that from the WWE days of the 1980s. And, you know, my view is that it's going to take someone like him, and the establishment has to sort of say, look, we need you to sort of wrap this in a Midwestern blanket to be able to talk to those folks, because frankly, we get too many people in Washington who can't. So that's why I think it's important to sort of, you know, somehow bring people together here. And there are certain people who have to step up on stage. You know, it just can't be a group of people and no one gets, you know, to get more than 30 seconds, because that's not going to be an effective message. That's what I'm trying to say, John.
Yeah, I'm hearing it. Look, the Democratic Party, I think we've kind of gone through this now like 5 times. The Democratic Party's not good at messaging. It hasn't been, you know, for the last, you know, I wrote a book that suggested it hasn't really been very good at it for 80 years. And I think that's basically the truth. And the reason for that is that the party is afraid to be boldly on the side of the working class. I don't think that's going to change. in the 2022 election cycle. And we can belabor it and complain about it all we want. But I do think that the Democratic Party has dumb luck into a better circumstance than what they A, usually have in a midterm, and B, might have expected even in this one. Here's the bottom line. You have 3 candidates right now running for Republican-held U.S. Senate seats who are running as economic populists. And that's it. That our media doesn't know how to cover politics on the first level, but it especially doesn't know how to cover economic populism. It is
right.
uniquely incompetent in this regard, and certainly anything to do with unions. But what you've got in John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, in Tim Ryan in Ohio, and in Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin are straight-on economic populists. The interesting thing about Barnes is he's the purest of the bunch in this regard because he actually uses the term working class all the time, which is something that Democrats choke on usually. But Mandela Barnes naturally uses the term working class. He is also the son of a United Auto worker, the grandson of an independent steelworkers union member who talks about it all the time and talks about going to Washington to represent union members and working class people. That is incredibly significant. The other thing that's incredibly significant is that Barnes and Fetterman, to a greater extent than Ryan, but Ryan not bad on this, Barnes and Fetterman both have deep commitments to building an urban-rural coalition, i.e. both of them actually go out to rural areas and campaign in them, and they know ag policy, they know farm and small-town issues better than their Republican opponents. That's particularly true with Fetterman in Pennsylvania. And so the bottom line is that the Democrats have candidates who can actually win these races, who are better than the Democratic messaging from on top. The thing I would argue is because the Democrats are so bad at messaging, my biggest worry is not what the DSCC or what Biden or people in Washington think or do or message. My biggest concern is to keep them out of the way because they're incompetent.
Yes.
They're bad at messaging. They really are bad at it. And so my counsel is let the people who are good at it, and remember, both Mandela Barnes and John Fetterman have won statewide races. And in fact, won primaries and then
both
won a part of the ticket. Tim Ryan, and Tim Ryan has been very, very active, winning in the congressional level for decades in Ohio. These are people who actually know how to do it. And my biggest fear right now is the Democrats will come in and say, oh, you have to have this, empty piece of messaging about education.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Bring in the DC consultants and screw it all up. Yeah.
They're just so awful, and they don't know how to talk about things. And they will keep saying, oh, say middle class, say middle class. No, middle class is an empty term. It doesn't have meaning. Working class is a real term that does have meaning. And so
use the term 35K. If the average American makes 35K, say this is what we're doing for those who make 35K, because that's what the average American makes.
Even for 50K.
So exactly.
So even for 50K. The bottom line, though, is this is the bottom line. I don't think we should be talking about messaging from Washington. I don't think
I agree. That's why I want those three amigos, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, to be on center stage. I don't want anything to do with Washington.
They should
Please keep them out. Keep them out of the way.
And if you want to have Bruce Springsteen go out and appear with them, that's fine. You can have.
Amen.
Yeah, you can bring the boss out. He'll be touring later or into next year. But the bottom line is, please, 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 don't do a cookie cutter campaign out of Washington.
Thank you very
from
much.
The Democrats this time around, because they just
that's a sure loser. All right, let's go to somebody who understands that, is working in his world every day, which is blue collar. Our good friend Arizona Joe. You're next with Harvey K. and John Nichols here on the Jeff Santos Show. Thank you for holding, Mr. Joe. How are you today?
Hey, man. Happy FDR Friday to all you.
Same to you.
And I was going to say, sorry if I missed getting a chance to talk to John Shelton. That was a very impressive guy. I like a guy who stands up and is a muscular Democrat.
He's a good man.
Oh man, he's a strong, muscular Democrat.
He will be a regular on this show for sure.
Good.
We keep trying to get him to run for Congress, but he's maybe too smart for that. He's maybe too smart for that, but
you took my thunder. I was going to say John Shelton for Congress. I am not kidding you.
Well, his wife's in the state legislature, so you may get her to move up, maybe. So who knows?
Well, there's a lot of clown Republicans in the Green Bay area. That
yeah.
For one.
Yeah, Harvey and Shelton know about that. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. All my Republican cousins live around there. It's ridiculous. But with that being said, I love the fact, John, what you were talking about, Mandela Barnes getting out to Trump country, uncontested Trump country. Now, like you, and I thought that was spot on. Like with the DNC and Wisconsin chapter, Ben Wickler. Ben Wickler I don't think he's ever traveled outside of Madison. I swear to God. Nobody is heading to Trump country and dumping money. It's so ham-handled. And I love Ben Wickler. There is nobody nicer in this world, but talk about replicating, the sins of the past. You're always dialing for dollars, but spending them in dumb ways. And that is uncontested because Trump country, their health care just stinks. Their child care stinks. It's non-existent. You can't they don't have any infrastructure. So, at the end of the day, that's good to know. And, but we're still in a donor class modality. And by the way, Harvey K., I felt like you were spot on with you identifying, like, everybody likes a handshake, but we've been, getting kicked in the shin as progressives. And, I know we shouldn't use that term anymore, but there is a distinguishing difference, and I just want to point that out. And, we've been on the short end of every stick. And when Biden said nothing's going to fundamentally change, he wasn't lying.
Yeah.
This is what that looks like. This is what democratic incrementalism
changed,
looks like.
But it hasn't changed enough, I think. I mean, I think Sunday, even Joe, I know you've been a big critic. We're moving in a direction for climate change. We've never done that before. We're moving in prescription drugs. And again, I know you're not a huge fan of Bernie Sanders, but, you like him a little bit. What they did, if you heard Alex Lawson on the show yesterday, I mean, a lot of the pressure that, from good people in Washington, the entire place is not just one big swamp. A lot of it is, but not all of it. And, frankly, I think there are some good things happening, but you've got a long way to go, man. I mean, I agree with you there. And there are a lot of people who are standing in the way of progress in Washington. And one of the reasons why Harvey was just saying, keep these consultants out of the way, and what John Nichols was saying, because they're the ones that are going to blow this thing up. And of course, the consultants work for the big donor base. So, it's not like it's just some guys they hire that comes up with cockamamie ideas off of a stupid poll. So, there you go. Let me just get quickly Harvey and John to reply, because I want to get a couple more calls as we head to it. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah,
appreciate it very much.
I do appreciate my Arizona colleague, my Arizona friend's words. But if you pick on anybody in Green Bay again, I'm going to start making up a list of folks in Arizona who are utter embarrassment. Okay, let me just make that clear. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But more important than that, I'll just say, I've come to the point, at least regarding the National Democratic Party, the Republicans have been cultivating hatred and fear for years. And the sad part is that all too often the Democrats have been cultivating cynicism. And seriously speaking, whether they can actually bring about fundamental change or not, they have got to stop going after progressives, because that's how you cultivate cynicism.
So if I can jump in,
John,
and
go
agree
ahead,
with,
John Nichols.
Yeah, let me first and foremost agree that cynicism is not the way to play this. It's got to be optimism. There's got to be hope, and there's got to be a message that voting for Democrats will actually mean something. That's why the things that have happened over the last week have been consequential, not because there are enough, but because there's evidence that Democrats can govern. That has consequence because then you build on that and you say, and we can do a whole bunch more. And one thing I'll throw into the mix here, though, and I am, as you know,
ask you to keep it
critic of
concise,
the
John.
DP
I want to get one more call in, so
I'm gonna let
30
me
seconds.
just finish the thought here. Okay,
Okay.
quickly. I think it's a little unfair to Ben Wickler because in Wisconsin, Ben Wickler actually has gone out to the rural county parties and helped them to open up offices and do more in those areas outside of Madison and Milwaukee. So I think that the Wisconsin Democratic Party is a bit more competent than the national party, and certainly we'd love to see everybody be better. But the fact of the matter is that in Wisconsin, that Democratic ticket of Tony Evers and Mandela Barnes with the other people down ballot, they actually get the need to run a statewide campaign and one that goes to all 72 counties. And my sense is that Ben Wickler also gets that and is pretty supportive of it.
All right, let's see if we can, Freddie. Let's go to Stephen in California. You are next with Harvey K. and John Nichols here on the Jeff Santos Show. Stephen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead, my man.
Yes. Can you hear me, Jeff? Okay, cool, groovy. Go Dodgers. I just want to try to make sure that I'm concise. Earlier in the first segment, you were talking about how well Biden is beginning to govern. I don't know. My feeling is this. For working class poor and for poor people, they can't touch it, feel it, or taste it. It's not moving them. Right now, he may be doing it for the suburb people, but for people like me and for people who are struggling, we're not noticing anything. You cancel, I don't have any student loan, fortunately, but if you cancel all student loan debt, I can touch it, I can feel it, and I can see it. That to me is governing. And we talk about messaging. They're great messaging. You know who too? They're donors. They're exactly saying, we got you, okay? So they're not dumb. These people go to the best schools. I'm not saying they're the most people, but they're not dumb people. They know what they're doing. They're messaging to exactly who they need to be messaging to. So what is our game plan moving forward? And I'll leave you with this. I may be the only one on the rock here in the sea, but people say Mr. Brown from Ohio is a good semi-progressive. No, he's not. He didn't vote for Bernie's amendment for child tax credit. Same with Warnock.
I disagree with you.
So I'm just saying, Jeff.
In this, I think Brown is sort of a we'll put it this way, if there's such a thing, an establishment progressive, and he may be the only thing that can get both sides together. But let me have John and Harvey because we're running out of time. I hear your frustration, and you're right.
The student
on
debt,
that
the student
overall.
debt, the student debt question is right on the horizon, and let's keep Biden out of the communication sphere, but get him to do something about the student debt question because young people need to be stirred.
No doubt. John Nichols, 10 seconds.
I would agree with what Harvey said. The one thing is I don't have as much confidence in the Democratic messaging as our caller does. I do think they're
Haul packages for a living? A gas-powered Mercedes-Benz Sprinter delivers. Transport people? A Sprinter van with 0% financing is a 5-star idea. If food delivery is your thing, then a gas Sprinter caters to you. And if you're a general contractor, the Sprinter with 0% financing nails it. With innovation, safety, and technology, Sprinter is built for you. And it's built for your bottom line with 0% financing. The Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, starting at just $33,790.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
So you want to go green? How about going green with your greenbacks? Try aspiration.com. Shares your values on the environment and climate change. Ever wonder what the big banks do with your deposits? Well, it goes to fossil fuel companies for sure. Not at aspiration.com. Your deposits will never fund fossil fuel projects like pipelines, oil rigs, and coal mines. With aspiration.com, you get 55,000 free in-network ATMs, 3 to 5% cash back on conscientious coalition purchases, personal impact score to help you shop to match your values, and an option to plant a tree with every roundup. Deposits in your Aspiration Spend and Save account are FDIC insured up to $2.46 million per deposit by being swept to FDIC member institutions.
To find out more, you can go to aspiration.com/revolution. Satellite images appear to show extensive damage and several destroyed Russian warplanes at a Crimea air base following explosions earlier this week.
These are the first independent images to confirm the extent of the damage caused by these explosions on Tuesday. They've been released by the US-based company Planet Labs, and they seem to contradict Russia's account of what happened. Moscow has denied that any aircraft, there was damage to any aircraft there after those explosions, and Moscow also denies that these explosions were caused by any attack.
China on Thursday renewed its threat to attack Taiwan following almost a week of war games near the island.
Of course, the statement of China goes against the facts and reality in the two straits, and it also goes against the international law. China was merely using US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan as an excuse to create a new normality to intimidate Taiwan's people.
More shelling of Ukraine's nuclear power plant has been reported, with Ukraine and Russia again blaming each other for the attack.
Any attack to a nuclear plant is a suicidal thing, and I hope that those attacks will end. And at the same time, I hope that the IAEA will be able to have access to the plant and to exercise its mandate competencies.
An Iranian man has been charged by the U.S. with plotting to kill former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton.
We face a rising threat from authoritarian regimes who seek to reach beyond their own borders to commit acts of repression, including inside the United States. This is an especially appalling example of the government of Iran perpetrating egregious acts of transnational violence in violation of U.S. laws and our national sovereignty.
This is the latest news headlines. A closely watched government economic gauge showed that consumer prices in the United States were virtually unchanged from June to July, an indication that hot-running inflation has begun to cool. Most analysts expected the gauge to show that prices increased slightly by 0.2% for the month, which would have been viewed as a positive sign. Instead, the gauge showed no change at all, which is seen as even more hopeful. A Fulton County judge has ordered Rudy Giuliani, former President Donald Trump's personal attorney, to travel to Atlanta next week to deliver in-person testimony about possible criminal interference in Georgia's 2020 election after Giuliani delayed testimony to recover from a medical procedure. Barring any further directives from Giuliani's doctor, Judge Robert McBurney considered all transportation options before he ordered Giuliani to appear in person next week. On a train, on a bus, or Uber, or whatever it would be, the judge said, that's plenty of time to make the trip. President Joe Biden on Wednesday enacted legislation that will expand the Department of Veterans Affairs, providing health care support for millions of veterans, as well as their families and caretakers who were exposed to toxic burn pits. Known as the PACT Act, the package grants more time to enroll in VA-provided care for veterans exposed to toxins while serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, according to the White House. Gaming companies are facing a slowdown in demand for video games from pandemic highs, raising doubts about their ability to weather out an economic downturn. Rising prices and lack of hit titles have added to problems for video game publishers Activision Blizzard Incorporated and Electronic Arts that are also battling supply chain delays and a shift in consumer choices due to easing lockdowns. And that's the latest news headlines. I'm Alan Edwards.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarkoni, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain. But I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
Hi, I'm Karen, owner of Lone Star Transfer. If you are a timeshare owner, getting out is probably a top priority. And now that annual maintenance fees are coming due, this ongoing burden and expense is at the top of your list. Thankfully, we can help. Let us do for you what we have done for thousands of others across the country. Our process is done legally, ethically, and quickly. Lone Star Transfer has a 99% success rate and an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. We are a family-owned business and will personally make sure your experience is a pleasant one. Don't let another day go by with maintenance fees taking your hard-earned money. Give us a call for a no-obligation consultation at 844-284-4863. That's 844-284-4863. Or online at LoneStarTransfer.com. That's LoneStarTransfer.com.
This is the Jeff Santos Show on the Revolution Radio Network. Rebuilding America. Together. Investing, activism, and supporting the middle class. Now, here's Jeff.
It is hour 3 of the Jeff Santos Show. Coming at you live from the South Coast here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're going to be talking with our good friend Mark Taylor Canfield coming up here momentarily. And hopefully we will be able to connect with him. Having a little bit of technical difficulties, but hopefully with a little magic from Boca Raton, Florida, and Seattle, WA, we can do just that. Let me just tell you this, folks. One of the things that we're very lucky here on the program and having our good friends Harvey K and John Nichols, particularly when we get them on together. And usually Nichols is on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central. And Harvey K on Fridays in the slot you just heard him at 4 o'clock, 1 o'clock Pacific time, is that you get two folks who understand where the progressive agenda is on the, if you want to call it on the academic side, since that's where, Harvey lived for many years, and on the journalist side where John Nichols has lived, and, both have performed so well in their individual areas. And it's important because, this is the makeup of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And, you connect that with labor and you connect it to what we're doing here on progressive media, that's what you have. So we're very lucky and to have our great callers interact with them, people like Joe and Stephen and, and then, other great callers like our good friend Mark in San Francisco or John in Minnesota or Tom in Los Angeles, all of the regular folks, include our friend Rudy, who's been a little bit on the weather recently. And that's what we're trying to do. And, we look to build, there obviously still a lot of kinks in the armor of the video, phone merging together, video and audio together. But we'll get there. we're trying to do what we can, and hopefully, with a little luck, come around Labor Day, we'll get some reinforcements. We're not expecting the cavalry to come, but maybe a few squadrons, if you might, if you want to look at it from a military perspective. Let me just say this, if we can, Freddie, if you can, let's go to the phones now, and I believe if Tom in Los Angeles is still there, we'll start with him. If not, John, and hopefully we can get Mark. I have just for your information. We have reached out via email to our good friend Mark in case his phone has indeed died. We all know about that situation. So hopefully we will hear back from Mark. In the meantime, let's open up the phones at, again, 833-545-JEFF. That's with a J. 833-545-5333. Is Tom still there? Let's start with Tom. If not, let's go to John in Minnesota. All right. Seemingly we're having some issues there too. Well, it is a Friday, and we're trying our best, folks. Another avenue Okay. Mark Taylor Canfield, can you hear me? All right. John in Minnesota, can you hear me? All right. So we're having some difficulties here. All right, here you go, John. I hear Puck. That's the most important sound of the day. I get to hear Puck. That means you're not too far away.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
I hear Tom. I can hear everybody.
There you go.
Hello?
Puck is the key.
The party line.
Yes.
The party line, John. Yeah, like who wants to talk first? I don't know who you're talking to, me or
John.
Tom,
Go ahead.
Oh,
John, go
thank
ahead.
you, South Arizona. Yeah. Oh,
Why
thank
not?
you so
No,
much.
it's
Yeah, I
all
don't.
there. Go ahead, John.
Well,
You're the veteran of the
what's
group.
our topic? I forget. We're talking
we
about
were talking
politics,
with Harvey
right?
and John about all the concerns of the party and whether or not you trust DC consultants in Washington to lead us to victory in November, or whether you want people like Arizona Joe and Tom and myself and others.
Well, obviously, I'm, I trust what people say. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like, who are these consultants and what are they consulting about? And I find, I've met a few of them. I mean, I just think they're arrogant idiots, and they're out of touch with what really what people want. And, they're in touch with what money wants, or what the powers that be tell them that is important, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this is the whole problem is the infiltration of money and power in politics.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of the infiltration of people power into politics. And I'm all for people power into politics. And I think that we, as somebody says, we the people really do matter and should rule. That was the whole idea of this. Even though we have representatives, they're supposed to represent the people, not represent the corporations. But corporate culture, corporate values, and I use that word, I don't think they really have any values. That's the whole problem with corporatization of things. Like, for instance, this practice that my wife went to for some orthopedic problems, they're a corporate practice, and they just hired somebody, and he's, in his little spiel, he says, I'm really for the corporate values of this company. Like, well,
The corporate values of the company?
I yeah.
What values does the company have?
Well, that's the whole problem, isn't it? That's the heart of this whole thing. Yeah. We could sum it up is the monetization and the corruption of everything by, quote, corporate values. That's the whole thing. They're anti-values. They're not values. They're valueless. They only value one thing: making a profit. For who? For themselves and their shareholders. All the time. And our voices get drowned out. And how do we change that? Well, you do have to get everybody involved. They have to demand that power. And like if you want, the union movement essentially is the basis of real democracy. It is what moved us from, the dark ages of the 18th and the 17th century to what you call democracy, power spread out amongst all people. And it's been really a good thing. It grew the economy. It makes societies very creative, very nimble. They can do amazing things. It's just amazing that ordinary people, they actually know how to solve problems. They can create things. They make things. They're really dynamic. And the other side of the coin, the corporate people, which you could just take you could say they're the aristocrats or the elites. They actually destroy power, destroy creativity, and they create a society that's incredibly cruel. If you have healthcare that's run by corporations, then you have healthcare that does not do healthcare, but does money care. They're caring about the money, the bottom line. And, and then we'll do a little healthcare on top of it. Now, it doesn't work that way, and every other country in the world has discovered that it didn't work that way and decided to do a different type of system that's either heavily regulated or actually a government system. And then it's also regulated through that, system, like we were talking about the other day with Wendell Potter. Instead, we have such capture of our government by, moneyed people, wealthy people, and corporations, that none of that actually happens. And what happens is that they just just keep sucking more and more and more and more for themselves, and they call that, quote, prosperity. But it's especially like in finances, the financial industry, with vulture capitalists like Paul Singer. He likes to, tell people how to vote in the 5th district of. He's also in on our little democracy here that we have running in the 5th district of Minnesota, and apparently doesn't like, Ilhan Omar. Oh my God, AIPAC and its little minions, that they've spun off. It has nothing really to do with the Israeli-American relationship. It's all about power and the corporate power is dictating to us, the voters, she's not. She shouldn't be there.
It is the situation, John. There's no doubt.
Sorry.
All right, let me. No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Look, I wanted to hear your perspective, and
my
you,
rant
provided it. Hey, thank you, my friend. As always, you're the soul of the show. You get it, and you practice what you preach. And you're there every week.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. All right, now let's go to Tom in Los Angeles, and we're going to try to see if we can get MTC in at the bottom of the hour and work it that way. Tom, if you're still there, go right ahead, my man.
Hey, Jeff, I am here. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can indeed. Go
Jeff,
right ahead.
can you hear me? Okay.
I can. If you can hear me.
First of all, Harvey will like this. My two dogs are Lambo and Lombardi. So that tells him what a Packer fan I am. You're talking about these different messengers, or these corporate lobbyists, or these people from Washington that shape elections. And I just don't understand why this is so difficult. Why can't you ask someone like a Mandela Barnes? Why can't you ask someone like a Tim Ryan? Why can't you ask someone like why do you want this job? Why do you want this job? I don't see anyone asking any of the politicians why they want this job. Because it's not to enrich yourself, first off. So Joe Manchin, why is it that you want this job? President of the United States, why is it that you want this job? If you crave power, then say it's because you crave power. If it's because you think you're going to get rich, say it's because you're going to get rich. If you're going to say it's for the public good and I want to have a society to leave to my children and grandchildren, then say that. But the thing is, these guys that go into politics for the wrong reason are the reason we have such corruption in politics. And then on top of it, you have a system that does not tax the billionaire class. So then the children start forming a dynasty. And now all of a sudden there is no competition. All of a sudden these kids are basically becoming the adults later in life, and they've never worked for anything in their life like their parent did or their grandparent did that started the corporation.
No, you're exactly right. That's the thing that the Bush scenario proved in Missouri and wiped out your guy and Kuntz. I mean, you cannot continue. I mean, look, I love Ted Kennedy. He's my first guest ever in the shows that I did, over the last 20 years. But you're trying to tell me that in Massachusetts you couldn't get another person in 40 years to represent Massachusetts? I mean, from 62 to 2009. I mean, there needs to be, you want to talk about term limits? I've always been open to it, with campaign finance, not just like the Republicans want it and just throw in, another billionaire, without any name ID. But I feel that I think you're spot on. I think there really needs to be people who, and this is somewhat Republican thought process or conservative thought process, is that you need to have it where, back in the day when there was blacksmiths and, people who were, local business people would be the office holders, the teachers and the, and the doctors who would hold public office. And we need to get back to that. But we need to get back to people who are really concerned. Now it's teachers and nurses. I mean, that's the two professions that I see that are really holding up, America. One educating, one saving lives. I mean, there are other people too, but I mean, those two come to mind.
But the whole country,
I think that's what we need, more people from that regard.
The whole country is about greed. The whole country is about, take the one deadly sin, go to the 7 deadly sins. We're committing all of them. So I don't know why it is that people think that it's just gross is what it is. It's gluttony. It's everything that these people from even the more rural Midwestern areas would honestly say is gross. So I don't understand how it is that we cannot win over these Midwestern areas if we're not, or these small towns. All I can say is those small towns doesn't matter if it's local cable where they don't pay for anything or whatever, they all get Fox News. And I don't know if that's
right.
part of what it is, and then you got 10,000 right-wing radio
it is made
stations.
that way. I mean, you go into hotels in the South, particularly in a state like Florida, you can't get MSNBC. It's not there on the system.
No, I'm saying they're that great. I'm not saying they're not that corporate.
No, I'm not saying it either. Look, they fired my guy and the late Ed Schultz.
I know you're not.
All I'm telling you. But you can't even get an alternate opinion. I mean, maybe you get CNN with Snow, and I'm not talking about the white stuff. I mean, fuzzy channels. So, it is this situation. Look on the radio dial. I mean, you can drive from coast to coast, LA to Boston. And, you can maybe find 1 or 2 stations along the way that carry progressive voices. It's not around. I mean, you can find, years ago when Limbaugh was alive, you could find him in every market in the country. I mean, they understand on the right wing. They understand. Yeah, exactly. Hannity today, all the other right-wing loonies. But the fact is that, you know, the Democratic Party will have put these DC consultants. They're going to get money from, you know, the large donor base that, you know, doesn't want to, annoy Wall Street or annoy the military industrial complex. And so therefore they're sending out, you know, anti-Trump things and, you know, a little bit of reform here and there, but not too much. You know, not too much. You don't want to excite the base too much, because then all the great
and let's be real. Let's be real. Those same consultants on Monday are working for the Dems, and on Tuesday are working for the Republicans. I mean, they're working for both sides in terms of what they have to do as advocates for these two. I mean, they work for both parties. It's disgusting. But I just think that we need to get back to some basics. And that's the other thing, too. You listen to right-wing radio, all they do is the talking points, and everyone does it like a robot all day long.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
On the progressive
and
side,
what they used to call them ditto heads.
We actually talk.
Yeah, exactly. No, we have conversations. You and I and all of our great callers and listeners that participate. Yeah, I mean, it's what people do normally, not just yes sir,
I mean, that's
sir.
one of the reasons why
you are wonderful.
That's the reason
Mr.
I say
Limbaugh.
every day. That's the reason why I say every day, we the people are the government. Ultimately, hopefully some people will wake up and realize, hey, we are the government. And you know what? They are, the Republicans are the pro-death party. And we need to get money out of politics. That's the whole problem with everything. And citizensunited.com. I mean, these are the things we need to do. And they all are very basic. And what I would do is I would take the things that 70% or 80% of the country agree with on policy, and I would basically take these candidates that we have that are coming up in the Senate and go with those things and say, this is what I'm for. These are these 3 things, 4 things.
I agree with you. That's why I've been saying get one in one room, get Barnes, get Fetterman, and get Ryan involved here, maybe Warnock too. Hey, thank you, Tom. I love you too, and
you know
love
what?
your
Maybe
concepts.
Beto O'Rourke. Yes,
why not? It's because he's not running for Senate. You know, he has some cojones, which we need more of. I agree, man. Hey, great to talk to you.
Exactly. Yep.
Thank you, Tom. All right, let's go to Seattle, and always great to hear from you, Tom, and talk to our good friend Mark Taylor Canfield. Sorry, Mark, it's been a confusing few minutes here. Thank you for holding on with us. Of course, MTC is there in the 206. He's the Renaissance man of the Jeff Santos Show, and he is, of course, a great musician, Democracy Watch News executive director, and, of course, a great activist for the progressive community. Mr. MTC, do I hear a guitar chord?
Am I on video now?
You are. I think you are. There you go. Jimmy, eat your heart out.
That was loud.
Have you had that for a long time?
I don't know if it was there. Wow. How you doing, Jeff? You're looking good.
I'm hanging in there, man. You know, it's insane, but I'm hanging in there. Hey, listen, we're going to, we've told our friends in the production center, we're going to hold you over.
Oh, go ahead.
Until 5:50 today, or 2:50 your time, if that's okay.
Sweet.
You know,
absolutely.
So we're going to do that just to let our production studio there in Boca talk to you. You were saying there are no Republicans on this show, so you don't have to worry about that, Mark.
No, in Seattle, we've been watching the Washington state primaries, which took place last week. And unfortunately, the Republican member of Congress from Washington state, Jamie Herrera Butler, she lost her primary to Joe King, who's one of those right-wing loonies who was supported by Donald Trump. So even in Washington state, one of the most progressive states in the country, the Trumpers are out there, the Trumpsters are out there trying to win local and state elections. And luckily, our state legislature looks like it's going to continue to be majority Democrats in the House and in the Senate. There was a lot of fear mongering going on for a while, even among Democrats, about how they were looking bad for this election. But the results are actually surprising in that most of the incumbents, especially in the Democratic Party, have won handily. But in this one race, which is in the 3rd congressional district, which represents, a much more rural part of Washington state, you have now Joe King, who's running instead of the incumbent Republican for Congress. And that's a little bit frightening. He's still denying that Biden won the election. So these are the people that are running for office. Should I check my immigration status into Canada, Jeff?
You should.
I mean,
and
British
I would
Columbia
check
is
that
looking
guitar
pretty
thing
good right
too.
now.
I'm going to put you on. We're going to put you. Not going to put you anywhere. Stay right there. We're going to go to a commercial break. We're going to come back with MTC live from Seattle. Guitar with the shades. I mean, every radio show doesn't have, or TV show now, an MTC with it. We're wrapping into the weekend, folks. It's the Jeff Santos Show. MTC back in 3 after this.
You don't have to wait for amazing deals on a new floor. Get spring Black Friday deals right now at Lumber Liquidators Flooring. This week, save up to 35% on gorgeous hardwood and waterproof vinyl floors. Plus, we can arrange for installation by professional, independent contractors. And with special financing, you can get started today. These are the floors homes are built on. Lumber Liquidators Flooring.
The Jeff Santos Show is brought to you by Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarkoni, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain. But I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9500 right now. That's 800-269-9500. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9500 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9500.
I'm Rich Rosario. 1 in 4 heart attack survivors will have another cardiovascular event. Award-winning author and American Heart Association volunteer Dr. Nisa Goldberg explains the hidden risks.
Many people don't realize that managing hidden risks like untreated high blood pressure, unhealthy eating habits, and poor medication adherence may reduce your risk for having another heart attack.
The American Heart Association's Secondary Heart Attack Prevention Initiative, sponsored by Bayer, reminds you to follow your doctor's recommendations to help reduce your risk factors.
Take your medication as prescribed. Certain medicines like aspirin can lower your risk of another cardiac event. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. It's important to understand your medications and take them correctly. Manage risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. Quit smoking, eat healthier, and get active.
Learn more ways to thrive after a heart attack at heart.org/oneisenough.
Supporting the middle class. This is the Jeff Santos Show.
What can I help you with?
Well, we're ready for the weekend, folks. It is the Jeff Santos Show that is in front of you and in front of us. The weekend is nearby. Our great friend, Mr. Mark Taylor Canfield, is with us. This is for the first time on video. in a long,
That
long time.
helps.
We've done a lot of things with Mark and Free Speech TV, and over the years, but this is the first time on this daily show that we are doing all of this, and very excited to be focused with our good friend MTC. We'll go to about 55 past, and we'll do a short commentary on the bottom of this after this very explosive week in the world of politics. It's seemingly every day there is something new out of Mar-a-Lago, including the news today of boxes of information, and the Republicans, of course, eating this up, saying it's all the Democrats' fault, blaming Ron Klain, all that nonsense. Well, they should look in the mirror, because they're the ones that started this. January 6th is a perfect example of that.
Librarians versus Trump. I love that line. Librarians versus Trump. Yeah, they're the heroes. The Librarians, National Archives. Thank you, guys.
Librarians. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm all in favor of the librarians, and in fact, I got an email making sure they want to keep open one of the libraries here in town. All the best, and go libraries, go. It's a cornerstone of public libraries is so important.
We have a local, and thank you, Ben Franklin. We have a local library here, a librarian who is so popular that they actually have a hero action figure created about her. And it's like Nancy the Librarian, because she is so super cool. And you can hear her on local radio and TV talking about, the latest books that have been published and stuff like that. So she's cool. And she's kind of like Maria Tomlinson. It would be great to get her on your show sometime just to talk, because she loves books. So anything you want to mention about publishing or archiving, she's there.
No.
She's good.
Pass along a phone number. You know how to reach me, my man. That would be great. I would love that. And just as
librarians
an
are
aside,
superheroes,
Melissa
like
Tomlinson is back with us on Tuesday. Go right ahead.
Badass teachers. Yeah.
That's right.
I love that.
She is badass. Yes, great. Best name in politics. Well, Mark,
that would be a
before
great
we get
name
into
she should start a rock band and call it that.
That's a great name. That's a great idea.
Absolutely.
we should
great name
should,
for teachers. Badass teachers, man. Everyone would go see them just because of the name. They'd be like,
yeah, exactly. That's a great idea. Just think of it. You think of all the bad names for rock and roll bands that are out there.
There are a lot.
Some would, yeah, there are. I
can't believe some bands became famous with their names they have, because they're just so stupid. But oh well, I'm not going to mention them. But yeah, there have been a lot of really bad. That's what I learned. No matter how bad the name of the band is, if you like your music, they will still go listen to you. There is the one from San Francisco that I used to like when I hung out down there, named Bong Water.
Oh my!
It's not a great name, but some people like it.
No, not really. That wouldn't do anything for me. No, look, people have taken advantage of a famous name, put the word "dead" in front of it, Dead Kennedys, right? So there's all of that, but there's a number of different ways. Yeah. Oingo Boingo.
He's great. He's the one who said, "Don't complain about the media, be the media." So I really appreciate that. I got to meet him one time.
Yeah.
He's but he's the one who said, don't stop complaining about the media and do it. Make media yourself. And I agree. You're doing it.
Well, the problem is it's very, very hard. Yeah, but not easy.
Occasionally I do. I have this thing called the MTC
report. Wow, you even got the cue cards, man. You come prepared.
This is like
the video Look at that.
Woodblock printing, Jeff. They ran over this with a steam roller in order to make it work, because we just made woodblock prints.
I'm frozen too. It's too much.
Okay, I shouldn't move so fast. But that was part of the block party where they teach you how to do woodblock printing. So that's like one of a kind, that card. It came from having to literally paint carved out wooden letters and place them on this tray, and then have something run over it really heavy. So it's part of Seattle. We like wood block printing here. It's like old school, super old school, before printers.
Yeah, bring back the Blacksmiths, man. Why not? There's another good name for a band, the Blacksmiths. Is there a name?
Yeah.
Was there a band called the Blacksmiths? Maybe it's already been done.
There should be. Absolutely. There's the Black Tones here in Seattle, but not the Blacksmiths yet, who are on a national tour, by the way. So shout out to Eva and Cedric Walker. They're really good cool members of the community who've done so much, played so many benefits for homeless shelters and other great things. She has her own show on KEXP, by the way. The
very cool,
amazing radio station in Seattle. So if anybody wants to know what's cutting edge music, just go to kexp.org. I'm not getting paid for saying that. I don't work for them, but they are the major Seattle nonprofit music station that just pushes Seattle bands and has helped break a lot of really famous bands, including ones we haven't talked about before, like the Fleet Foxes and Harvey Danger. And they're, besides Death Cab for Cutie,
I've heard of Harvey Danger.
That have made big names for themselves and done world tours. And the first thing you have to do in Seattle is get your music on KEXP, which actually was started by Paul Allen, by the way, one of the Microsoft billionaires.
Now that's shocking because, I mean, was he Paul Allen of Microsoft fame at that time when he started it? Or was he Paul Allen,
he also started the
trying to rub two nickels together?
Experience Music Project. He collected Jimi Hendrix memorabilia. He was in a rock band himself. So there was a part of him, the Seahawks owner. That's when I met him, is when he was the Seahawks owner at the at the Super Bowl celebration, where like 70,000 people came out in the streets in Seattle. And he was actually kind of stuck in traffic, not great security, guys, keeping one of the world's richest people sitting in this little car. But, they rolled down the window.
Prius or something, was he?
It was a small white car. I don't remember the kind of car. He was trying to be non-discreet or indiscreet, which is what people do in Seattle. Rich people here drive Toyotas and stuff, and Priuses, of course, and a few Teslas. But I've seen a few Mercedes lately. But watch out for those people. You don't want to, I'm just saying. A lot of those are the corporate people who have moved here from other places.
Well, you got the Amazons, you got the Starbucks. Hey, I was talking earlier with John Shelton. We're going to have on a lot, a good friend of Harvey K, and the vice president of AFT Wisconsin. And, he was talking a lot about, the Starbucks workers and what Schultz is looking to do. And basically trying to wipe out these major gains. It's now 211 stores, Mark, that have unionized across the country. I'm wondering, because it's all there in Seattle, what is the pushback, the feedback by local people? I mean, do any of the political figures outside of Sawant, the great progressive city councilor, Democratic Socialist, I mean, is there anybody, saying, hey, we have to take a look at this? They may give us money, Starbucks, to all of our campaigns, but, they're treating people like dirt. And, why do we in a progressive city, allow this? Is there any talk like that at all, or too much donor money? We can't say anything.
Oh, no. Shama Sawant, as usual, the Democratic Socialist City Council member, has been out front on these labor issues. She was there supporting the carpenter strike. She's been there right up front, passing resolutions to the City Council supporting the Starbucks workers' right to protest and unionize. And she also, lately, there's actually Sunday, I believe, Jeff, there is a solidarity rally in Seattle for some childcare workers who just got fired in Seattle because they began to unionize and organize. So it's, labor is a big issue here. I know that the Teamsters 117, they follow me on Twitter and stuff like that. There's the SEIU, folks like that have been really strong. The ILWU in pushing, for labor issues in this area. The King County Labor Council, the Martin Luther King Junior County Labor Council represents, over 100,000 people. So they have a lot of might. And so I think Shama Sawant is right in taking the lead on this. I think a lot of the other more middle of the road or neoliberal city council members don't feel comfortable taking a stand on issues like this. In fact, two of them voted or abstained and refused to vote on her resolution supporting the Starbucks workers, Jamie Peterson being one of them, because they just decided, and Sarah Lewis is the other one, not the Sarah Lewis who is a great union leader, who supports Shama Sawant, by the way, but another Sarah Lewis, they decided not to vote for that, saying that they didn't think it was the city council's job to speak out on private issues, and Starbucks being a private corporation. They didn't think it was their job. But come on, a city council member, you represent everyone, and you represent Starbucks workers too. And so you have to stand up for them. That, you know, it's not about private versus public. I mean, whether it was a public employee union or a private, you know, corporation, you need to stand for labor rights. So that's all I have to say about that. But yeah, Shama Swan has been out in front on the Starbucks and the Amazon workers' right to organize. And, you know, there has been some pushback. There was a recall election that tried to replace Shama Swan on our city council, funded by a lot of very wealthy business interests. But she actually was able to raise more money than them, I think, by the end of it, and with these national call-outs because of her international reputation, and she won her recall election. So that was kind of a waste of money on the part of the business interest guys. I would say, like, not a good call in terms of, you know, monetization in business sense, to waste money trying to get rid of someone who's so popular.
Yeah,
hopefully they've
no
learned
doubt.
that.
Yeah, I mean, my hope here is that you know, that is that Sawan will get more allies, you know, in the city council, and it needs to be more than just her. Talking with MTC here on the Jeff Santos Show. Look, you were texting over the last 24 hours about Chris Connell, and you know, I'm fascinated by all of that. Give us the latest on that, Mark.
Well, you know, I am a major part of the Seattle music scene. I'm here in my studio, as you can see, and spend a lot of my time here recording and writing music, producing music. So I think about the people in this city who have influenced me. Of course, this is David Bowie back here behind me. But
You know,
I
he's
also walk by
the guy that I really wanted to see, and you know, I had a chance to potentially, because you know, my friends in New York at the time running the great place in Soho there, you know, were doing one of his last albums. But that's if one guy that, you know, on a bucket list to see before he passed tragically a couple of years ago or a few years ago was Bowie. So you know, huge fan. You know, talk about you know, just crossing so many different genres.
Right. See, he has influenced me because of my songwriting. I often think about him when I write songs, and then when I play electric guitar, like on my beautiful Flying V here, I think about Jimi Hendrix. Now, Hendrix actually is from Seattle, but Bowie did spend some time in Seattle. There are stories about him just kind of wandering around the streets of Seattle, and nobody really knew what he was doing here, but he was probably just trying to get some ideas. But he's always been a great songwriter in my estimation. Started as kind of a folk singer, and you know, went through a pop phase and stuff like that. But by the time he found his voice, I think he was a very eclectic musician who worked with everyone from Brian Eno to Iggy Pop, right? So he was all over the place. And I am that way myself. I mean, I have kind of a rock, blues, rootsy, grungy kind of sound, but I also write rock ballads and slower folky kind of rock songs and stuff. And I think Bowie has influenced me and allowed me to think about myself as a songwriter in a larger perspective, you know, and to go and break down those genres. But Chris Cornell, I walk by his statue almost every day. It's outside of the Museum for Pop Culture in Seattle. And so he's out there. I often high five him, just like I rub Jimmy's head when I walk by it on Broadway for luck. And yeah, and I think about their music when I see them, and it's important to me. You know, there was a big ceremony there when they unveiled it, and Vicky, his wife, was there, and his daughter was there also, and she has her own band in Seattle, which we can talk about more at a future time, but I hope to see her perform soon. But Vicky and Chris are in memory of Chris, and also, as you know, this started before he passed away. They started the Vicky and Chris Cornell Foundation, and they started hoping to help out homeless kids in Seattle, which they did. They helped fund this place called the Phoenix House, but they also decided to go international and started working with the International Rescue Committee, the IRC, which works with refugee children all over the world. So he ended up traveling, Chris Cornell traveled to different parts of the world, meeting with organizers and activists and healthcare workers in refugee camps. And so he and Vicky had this foundation, and now she's the main spokesperson for it, of course, because he's not with us anymore. But she is out there still helping to raise money for very worthwhile causes. Chris apparently was very concerned about children and abused children and at-risk children. So a lot of the foundation is dedicated to that. He also wrote a song for a film called The Promise, which you can see, I believe, on YouTube and other platforms.
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful song that he wrote, thinking about, their work in this area. And it made a big difference in the film and the message that they're trying to get across to people there about refugees around the world. So I have to say, as when it comes to politics and activism, that's a very good example of what some Seattle musicians have done. Pearl Jam has done a lot of work raising money for homeless shelters. They've also helped out a lot of local bands and worked with at-risk kids themselves in trying to foster the love of music and, rock and roll, and trying to get kids off the street and, playing music. So they've even just chipped in to help out local bands. And Mike McCready from Mike McCready and also Kim Thale from Soundgarden, but Mike McCready from Pearl Jam has also stepped up to support local bands. So
well, I don't know if you can see from your vantage point, but we got a little U2 from Joshua Tree right above Bernie Sanders here.
Yeah,
and that's they've been my music heroes, if you might. What he's done.
Oh yeah.
With AIDS and Greenpeace and all that over the years, Bono and the rest of the band there. And
I used to listen to October and Boy continually.
Sure.
Over and over and over again. Just that was part of my musical education. I was just like so enthralled with those albums and the really empathetic and passionate vocals that Bono did, and also that crazy edge guitar playing that nobody else kind of did.
Yeah,
I love Unforgettable Fire when Brian Eno produced that. I think oh my gosh, in the name of
In the Name of Love, Pride. I mean, that's a poem. I actually read that as a poem, not as the lyrics. I mean, it's just something that as a matter of fact, in a bunch of U2 books, Eno is telling Bono, he says, look, no matter what happens with Unforgettable Fire, you have a hit that you can just run with to stardom. As a matter of fact, one of the interesting things that happened at Live Aid, you probably know this, Mark, being in the business, but they were going to play In the Name of Love, which had just come out a year before. This is 1985, July of 85, Live Aid. And of course, they went on and Bad. They were playing Bad, and of course, that whole scene where there was a woman being trampled, and Bono wanted to bring her over, and so they spent like 6 minutes. The band didn't know what the heck was going on. They just kept playing the chords, and Bono is literally jumping off the stage, 2 stages, to help and hug these women who just were getting trampled and so forth, and shoved against the wall. But they didn't have enough time to do the third song. It was first Bloody Sunday, and then it was Bad, and then it was supposed to be their new hit at the time, In the Name of Love, but they never got to play it. So
that's a great rock and roll story. I just think about Martin Luther King Jr. whenever I hear that song, and
I know
there was a really amazing pastor from Texas who told me, from a congregational church in Seattle, whose piano I used to play, because they had a piano there and they let me come in and play their baby grand, and it's such a nice place to rehearse my stuff. And so he gave me a book one day, and he said, I think, he says, I'm going to do some traveling with my wife. We bought a sailboat. We're going to go sailing for a while. So I don't know when I'll be back, but here's a book I want you to have. And it turned out to be, I think it's called The Strength to Love, or The Courage to Love, by Martin Luther King Jr. And it just blew my mind. Like I've cherished that book ever since. I felt like through that book, I developed some kind of personal, relationship with Dr. King, and I've never forgotten that. And also, such a great gift to give a young person, to cherish, and to kind of shape their being. I think he felt like I want to influence this guy in a good way somehow. And so that's what he gave me. So I think of that song. I also love Brian Eno, of course. I've always loved Eno's stuff, even when he got into the weird ambient stuff later. But his Roxy music, oh my God, that stuff is so classic. And I listen to Brian Ferry a lot. I love what they did
Brian
back
Ferry.
in the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you're talking about some great musicians, man. Hey, we just got a couple of minutes here because we're going to end a little bit earlier for commentary purposes. But talk to me about some of those guitars behind you, Mark. There's one, I think, to your right that is behind there. Is there a story that goes with all these guitars? I can imagine. Must be.
Well, yeah, and then to this side, that's a violin actually right here.
Yeah,
So
I see that.
I actually play a little bit of violin, so I really love this thing. It's really great for, I'd rather just kind of play the part myself than use samples or something. And then if you're talking about the electric guitar,
yeah,
this one, that
yeah. Orange, or is that orange or red?
It's actually red. As you can see, I like red. So in the studio, there's a lot of red. I have a red acoustic guitar over by the David Bowie poster.
As long as you don't vote red, it's fine with me. I like the color red.
I wear black a lot, but I like this color of red in my studio. So it's an active color. So the red guitar just goes with the studio. That's why I bought it. No, I'm not. I'm just kidding. It's actually a PV, and PV doesn't make that many electric guitars. They're better known for their amplifiers, right? But they make these amazing guitars every once in a while, and they're a little expensive. But this one is like a super deluxe because it has, not only does it have humbuckers on it, which are the double coil pickups like this one has, which is great for heavy metal and really loud music, distorted music. But that one also has 2 single coil pickups, which is a totally different style. Like this one. This is a Les Paul. So these are single coils. This is actually a Les Paul Junior, because originally they had single coil pickups. So this gets a really nice bright sound. And that thing, the PV has both. So you don't have to switch between guitars.
So you cannot lose any of these guitars, man. These are just jewels. I mean, fantastic. Les Paul and the one we had earlier. Hey, we got to run, my man. But thank you so much. So now that we have you, hopefully we will continue to have good success with the feed there in Seattle. And hey, have yourself a great weekend, man. It's so great to see you, for the first time in a long time. So all the best, my man.
Too,
you take care of yourself.
Check out Democracy Watch News. That's one of the organizations that I work with. And then you can go to YouTube and check out my videos, and please subscribe and, share the videos, because this is independent media that you're seeing here, folks. You're not going to see this everywhere else, so value it and cherish it. This guy is really great, by the way, Jeff Santos. He's a cool guy, and you should watch his show every day. Absolutely.
And his guests are amazing too. I love Harvey. Not that I have a lot of money, but whatever.
Boyd is one of my heroes. So good people.
Herb is fantastic. Hey, have yourself a great weekend, man. Thank you so much. Folks, it just a couple of things here. I must tell you, we have been doing these shows, and we're going to continue to keep doing these shows. And what you have seen over the last few days, when we combine the likes of Nichols and Harvey K, and when we do it with Brian Garvey, and we're going to try to do a lot more people in quote unquote in the boxes if you're watching us now on video. And this is something that I think is really important, to bring as many voices as we can, at the same time, and to be able, and we're going to try to do more texting and more commentary at the bottom of the page as well, for people to make some comments and so forth. But we have an opportunity here. I mean, what has happened this week with Trump, and what has happened on last week, or Saturday, Sunday, with the whole situation with Biden scoring, there's an opportunity here. And we're going to move toward August to make this happen. So hopefully we can do just that. Until then, have yourself a great weekend. My name is Jeff Santos. Thank you to Boca and Freddie Santori. But right now, it is my time to say, I gotta go.
Mass Peace Action. With over 9,000 supporters in the state, MPA uses the power of grassroots organizing to end war, create a more just foreign policy, and cut wasteful Pentagon spending to support the needs of the American people, like healthcare, education, infrastructure, and the environment. 20 years of war is long enough. To become a member or learn more, visit masspeaceaction.org. Don't wish for peace, work for it.